Warrior Lore. Chapter 36-48. Vern and Clark were dumbfounded as they looked at the leader in front of them. What do you mean? Hanrue was also startled. I've given the half-dead Kata village too many chances. My patience has long been worn out. The leader glanced at the three of them and said coldly, moreover, you abandoned Kata village yesterday. Who can guarantee that you won't abandon us in the future? So, if you want to prove your loyalty, go and snatch the soul-eating beast for me. Also, either win Shanya over, or kill her if you can't win her over. A murderous intent flashed in the leader's eyes. This time, I want to take over Kata village. Hanrue was a little dazed and his mind was blank. Of course, he was happy that Shanya was not dead, but the Ija's request was too much. Fern and Clark followed behind him in silence. The two of them did not expect the Ija leader to be such a person. After walking for dozens of miles, Zichun put the soul-eating beast on the ground and sat on a big rock to rest. His hunger grew even stronger. This was a feeling that he hadn't felt in a long time, and it made Zichun think back to his youth. Shanya sat beside Zichun and looked into the distance with boredom. After a while, Zichun came back to his senses and said, "Can you teach me how to use the soul-binding chain?" During the battle yesterday, Zichun had already found that the Holy Runes effect was greatly suppressed, and here, the difficulty of rewriting runes had increased a lot. He had decided to do as the Romans do and learn the soul techniques here. Of course, Shanya said, that's the simplest soul power control. It's relatively easy to master. You just need to concentrate your mind. Shanya personally taught Zichun. A black light appeared in her palm and then gathered together to become a black rope. Why don't you try? After explaining some control tricks, Shanya looked at Zichun and said. Zichun did not respond and looked ahead. There were three people there. Shanya followed Zichun's gaze and saw Hanrue's trio. Shanya stood up. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Hanrue looked at Shanya with a complicated expression. Zichun was still sitting there, not getting up. He was surprised to see the three of them here. That was all. He didn't have a bad impression of the three of them, but he didn't have a good impression of them either. Vern and Clark looked at Zichun. It was obvious that Shanya was alive because Zichun had saved her. He dared to challenge the soul-devouring beast on his own. They admired his courage. Moreover, the fact that Zichun could succeed was even more unbelievable to them. Shanya was silent. She didn't know what to say to Hanrue. She had heard about what had happened yesterday. After the other party came back, he pointed the spearhead at Zichun and was the first to leave. As for saving her, he had no intention of doing so at all. At most, he would bury her in his spare time. Hanrue looked at Zichun again and said coldly, I used to hate you very much. I still hate you now, even if you saved Shanya. If you hadn't appeared, we would still be living well. But your appearance has disrupted our rhythm. So, the culprit of all this is actually you. Zichun, who was sitting on the big stone, didn't expect Hanrue to point the spearhead at him at this time. He stood up and said, maybe everything is as you said. It's because of me this time. But so what if you got the soul-devouring beast last time? There will be a time when you can't get the soul-devouring beast. Shanya, what if an accident happened at that time? Would you sacrifice yourself to save her? Hanrue said coldly, if it weren't for you, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened at all, because this is how we lived all these years. Zichun shook his head and didn't bother to pay attention to him. He had seen this kind of people before. In fact, he had seen many of them. It seemed that even if something big happened, he would not be wrong. Even if you pointed it out to him, he would still feel that he was right. For example, yesterday, he had given up on the mountain pass and abandoned the villagers. Today, he had come here and claimed that he was the one who had to bear all the blame. The past is the past. There's no need to look into it. Shanya, who had been silent, finally spoke. She looked at the three and asked, what are you doing here? Vern and Clark looked a little embarrassed and didn't dare to say their intentions. Hanrue didn't care and said directly, I'm here to invite you to join the Iza village. Not interested. Shanya refused directly. Hanrue's face suddenly showed some anger and said discontentedly, why do you want to stay in that broken place? Use your hard work to provide for a group of blood-sucking bugs? They won't do anything, and will only waste our harvest. Shan Ya's eyes became a little colder. You said they are blood-sucking bugs? Then do you remember that it was those blood-sucking bugs that raised you and me? Without them, would you and I be alive now? Shanya and Hanrue were both orphans. They grew up in Kata village. Before the village chief and the others lost their soul power, they were responsible for hunting soul-eating beasts. But as they grew older, their soul power began to fade and eventually they became ordinary people again. So what? I will remember their kindness. But what can we get by staying in that place? Hanrue said angrily. We will only be a burden and have no future. And what do we get for making such a big contribution? That broken place will still be Kata in the future. Shanya, if you come to Iza village, when you are strong enough and surpass the chief, Iza village will become Shanya village. It may even become Shanya tribe in the future. Come to Iza village. Only there will you have a better future. Zichen looked at Hanrue as if he was looking at an idiot. He couldn't help but say, This is your goal? Just for a name? What is an idiot like you know? Hanrue said disdainfully, This is the goal of all of us. It represents infinite glory. Zichun said, I don't know, but I know very well that you, who don't even know the soul-shocking light, will never reach this goal in your life. You are courting death. Hanrue's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Shanya said, Give up? I will never leave Kata village in my life. Hanrue stared at Shanya. You really don't want to go? Shanya said decisively, Even if I die. Hanrue's gaze suddenly turned into that of a man-eating beast. There was disappointment and madness in his eyes. Then you must have taken a fancy to this idiot. Since you're so willing to die with him, then I'll fulfill your wish, you bastard. Hanrue waved his hand and said, Kill them. The next moment, 2 black soul power ropes flew out from behind Hanrue. It was Vern and Clark who had been silent. Chapter 36:49. Bang! There was a loud rumble, and a powerful shockwave spread out. Ija was sent flying again. The black rope around him disappeared immediately. He fell to the ground, rolled several times, and suddenly coughed up blood. After the soul-shaking light, Shan Ya's face immediately turned pale. His body shook, and he almost fell down. At this moment, Vern, Clark, and Henry were still immersed in the scene of Zichun using the soul-binding chain with his left hand. This battle happened very quickly, and it ended even faster. In just a few exchanges, Iza was injured and defeated. As for the others, they seemed to be in a bad state. Zichun stood there with a cold expression. Chief. The soul hunters came forward and helped Iza up. Iza looked at Zichun and asked in shock, Who are you? He knew that the soul-binding chain was the lowest level of soul technique. It was far inferior to his soul-severing knife, so he didn't bother to cultivate it. But he had never seen anyone who could cultivate the soul-binding chain to such an extent. It was impossible to use it with both hands at the same time. Zichun stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, You don't need to know who I am. Don't worry, I won't kill you today, but I will let you go on condition. You must send Vern and Clark's families safely to Kata village. Without giving them time to think, Zichun looked back at Henry and said, Let him go too? Vern and Clark were still in shock. Zichun's strength had a great impact on them. At this moment, when they heard Zichun's words, they immediately nodded and let go of Henry. Henry stood there and didn't move. He was completely dumbfounded. Zichun's means had completely subverted his understanding. Zichun didn't look at Henry, but walked to Iza in front of him. The soul hunters around Iza became very nervous. They looked at Zichun as if they were looking at a demon, because they had never seen such a powerful and strange person. What do you want? Ija looked at Zichun, his expression changing. Zichun walked in front of Iza and smiled. Don't worry, I said I won't kill you, so I won't kill you this time. Looking at the smile on Zichun's face, Iza did not feel reassured. Instead, he felt even more terrified, as if the devil was smiling. Zichun reached out and took a small cloth bag from Iza's hand. I'm just hungry. I want to borrow some food from you. There were 4 life spirit fruits in the small pouch. Zichun came back with the small cloth bag, his back facing Iza. Ija's gaze began to change. If he made a move in this situation, he would definitely be able to severely injure the other party. That damnable fellow actually dared to snatch my life soul fruit? With his back to Iza, Zichun suddenly raised his hand. Ija's expression slightly trembled, and there was fear in his eyes. Did that damn guy change his mind? Thanks. Zichun waved his hand and said without turning his head, I won't see you off. Let's go. Iza did not dare to stay here any longer. He turned around and left. Leader, wait for me. Hanrui shouted and followed after him. After everyone left, Zichun's face instantly turned pale, and his aura weakened significantly. Shanya noticed Zichun's abnormality and asked nervously, Zichun, what's wrong with you? Zichun waved his hand and said, I'm fine. I didn't control my power well before. I consumed too much of my soul power, so I'm a little weak. Vern and Clark clicked their tongues. He was already so powerful. How could he say that he didn't control his power well? Of the 4 life spirit fruits, Zichun swallowed 2 directly, handed the other 2 to Shanya, and said, Hurry up and recover. Don't let anyone see any flaws. Shanya, who wanted to refuse, had to take the life spirit fruit. In this world, the life spirit fruit represented everything. After eating 2 life spirit fruits, the hunger obviously disappeared, and the soul power that had disappeared before began to gradually replenish. We have to go too. After feeling that some of his soul power had recovered, Zichun said, Let's exchange for the life spirit fruit as soon as possible. The people in the village are still waiting. Vern and Clark took the initiative to step forward and lifted the soul-devouring beast. At this time, the 2 of them still hadn't recovered from the previous scene. When they looked at Zichun again, they were still extremely shocked. What soul technique did you use before? On the way, Shanya finally couldn't help but ask. Soul binding chain? Didn't you just teach me? Zichun said. When Vern and Clark heard this, they were shocked again. When they approached the 2 of them, they happened to see Shanya teaching Zichun the soul binding chain. Did she only say it once, and Zichun remembered and learned it? But our soul binding chain can only be activated with the right hand. It can't be used with both hands at the same time. Shanya said, Your soul binding chain is obviously different from ours. Zichun smiled and said, It's mainly focused on the mind. Nothing is impossible. Hearing Zichun's words, Shanya thought of the legend of the Descenders. Each of them was a natural soul hunter. Was it because Zichun was a descender that he could be so powerful? Ija left with his people, but he was very angry. He originally wanted to destroy Kata village, but he didn't expect that the life spirit fruit would be taken away. How are you guys? Ija looked at the others. He had seen the previous scene with his own eyes. The opponent's strange attack was too terrifying. They shook their heads, indicating that they were fine. How can you be fine? Ija was stunned. He had heard the screams of the people before. That guy's attack looked very strong, but it wasn't that strong. None of us were hurt, one of them said. Ija said angrily, Then why didn't you attack back then? Their expressions all changed. Previously, they were actually scared stiff. After seeing their leader being easily defeated, they even lost the will to fight. But now that they were out of the place, they realized that they weren't hurt at all. So he only attacked me, and none of you were hurt? Ija said with a gloomy face. The others nodded. What is the background of that guy? Why is he so strange? Ija looked at Hanrui, who had been silent all this time. His name is Zichun, an idiot who was saved by Shanya. Just yesterday, he was a cripple with no soul power. I didn't expect him to have soul power today, Hanrui said angrily. He only had soul power today? Ija's face became gloomier, and his eyes began to change. So he wasn't that strong, and was just trying to scare us? Hanrui shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. In this matter, he obviously didn't dare to make wild guesses, because Zichun's use of the soul-binding chain really scared him. Leader, he must be trying to scare us. How about we go back now? A soul hunter said. Ija waved his hand. Whether the other side was lying or not, the previous calmness and killing intent were real. Although he didn't know what was so strange about the guy named Zichun, the previous golden attack was obviously not a soul power attack, which was really strange. Looking at the leader's silence, Hanrui suggested, How about we detain Vern and Clark's family first? Let's find out more about that guy first. Chapter 3650. Zichen's group of 4 continued on their way, and nothing unexpected happened during this time. Along the way, Zichen explained the use of mind power to the 3 of them. In fact, in this world, soul power was equivalent to the holy thunder energy in the saint spirit realm. Zichen naturally had a deep understanding of the holy thunder energy. He had even created his own energy technique with extraordinary power. Although there was also soul power in the saint spirit domain, soul power was too mysterious. Only a small number of people were able to grasp the wonders of soul power. However, it was different here. Soul power was the only power in this place, and it existed in one's body just like the power of the holy lightning. Furthermore, due to the rules of this place, Zichen had a deeper understanding of soul power. Coupled with his previous experience of controlling energy, he was able to use the soul power that filled his body in some simple ways. For example, when he dodged Ija's attack, he gathered soul power under his feet and accelerated his speed instantly. Zichen explained in detail, but the 3 of them obviously didn't understand. Even if they understood, they couldn't do it. Some common sense in the saint spirit realm didn't work here. Then, Zichen made another request. Could he teach him the soul-shaking light? Compared to the soul-binding chain, the soul-shaking light was obviously more lethal. Hearing Zichen's words, Vern and Clark's eyes lit up with expectation. They already knew that Zichen had only used a short period of time to learn the soul-binding chain, and had even improved it. If Zichen learned the soul-shaking light, what would happen? Not to mention whether Zichen would improve this soul skill again. The fact that there was a second soul hunter in Kada village who could master the soul-shaking light would greatly improve the overall combat strength. The soul-shaking light was no secret in Kada village. As long as one was a soul hunter, he or she was qualified to cultivate it. But whether one could master it was another matter. Shanya was certainly very happy to teach Zichen the soul-shaking light. Vern and Clark carried the soul-eating beast all the way. When they didn't need her and Zichen's help, she taught Zichen how to use the soul-shaking light on the spot. During this time, he chanted an incantation, causing his soul energy to form vibrating ripples. Zichen had come into contact with countless techniques, so he was very clear about the use of incantations. It was to resonate with the rules of this place and increase the success rate. It was just like how certain spells needed to be cast in order to succeed. But once one grasped the knack of it, all of these could be given up. Zichen began to experiment, circulating his soul power in his palm. The rules of this world were a little special, allowing the effects of soul power to be infinitely magnified here. And the difficulty of cultivating spirit techniques would be greatly reduced. After Zichen tried several times, a clear light pattern appeared on his palm. The 3 of them were shocked. Vern and Clark looked at Zichen as if they were looking at a monster. They couldn't believe that Zichen could comprehend the soul-shocking light so quickly. They had been practicing hard for a long time but couldn't master it. Shanya was once again shocked by Zichen's identity as a descender. Vaguely, she seemed to have a deeper understanding of the natural soul hunters. For people with soul power, 100 miles was not too far. The Noah tribe appeared in front of them. According to Shanya, this world was dominated by villages, and large villages would become tribes. The name of a tribe would often change, which usually meant the change of the strong. For example, the Noah tribe didn't have this name 20 years ago. It was only after Noah became the strongest of the tribe that it changed its name. Outside the tribe, there was a high wall fence guarding it. It looked like a small town, and many people were coming in and out of the gate. During this period, there were many people like Zichen's team who brought soul-devouring beasts. But almost all of them brought several soul-devouring beasts with them, and there were many people guarding them. It was rare to see someone like Zichen who only had one soul-devouring beast. There were people guarding the gate, and only those who entered would collect the life spirit fruit. Shanya said, "This is the rule of the Noah tribe. When outsiders enter, they have to pay a life spirit fruit as a toll. If you don't have one, you can come out and give it to them, but the price is double." They didn't have any life spirit fruits on them. Zichen had already swallowed the 4 life spirit fruits that he had obtained. How many life spirit fruits can one soul-devouring beast be exchanged for? Zichen asked. About 200, but you have to leave a quarter as the reward for activating the god's grindstone. Hearing Shan Yu's words, Zichun smiled faintly and said, "That's a good plan. In this way, as long as the god's grindstone exists, the Noah tribe will never decline." Shanya nodded. Every day, many people from the village would come here to exchange for the life spirit fruits. Just the daily rewards from the god's grindstone were already a lot. But the Noah tribe was also very powerful. Otherwise, the god's grindstone would have been snatched away long ago. Vern and Clark put the soul-devouring beast on the ground. They obviously didn't intend to go in. Zichun had never been here, let alone seen the god's grindstone. Naturally, he wanted to go in and have a look. Shanya needed to lead the way for Zichun, so the two naturally had to go in. So, Zichun carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward under the leadership of Shanya. At the gate, Shanya said a few words to the guard at the gate. The guard nodded and let them in. The Noah tribe was not small. The specifications of the houses were obviously far better than those of Kata village. The god's grindstone was in the center of the tribe, in a very conspicuous position. After Zichun walked into the Noah tribe, he felt that it was full of rich soul power. It was like a cultivation treasure land. The soul power was far more abundant than that of Kata village. He looked around along the way and found that the expressions of the people along the way did not change. They seemed to be used to this. "Are there many soul hunters here?" Zichun suddenly asked. "How do you know?" Shanya said with some surprise, "The number of soul hunters in the Noah tribe is indeed more than that of other tribes. And the number of awakened soul hunters every year is also very large." This place was like the Tianwu continent where Zichun had been. In a place full of heaven and earth energy, every child born here was a cultivation genius. Because before they were born, the environment they grew up in had provided them with great convenience. However, Zichun had not found any unusual terrain here before. Why was the soul power so abundant, and several times more than that of Kata village? The doubts in his heart were quickly answered. Chapter 36:51. A huge millstone that was 5 feet tall, emitting pure black light, stood in the center of the Noah tribe. It was the divine soul heaven grind. The heaven grind was rotating slowly, and the surrounding space was distorted. Countless soul power lingered in the surroundings. "I see." Seeing the huge heaven grind in operation, Zichun finally understood. The heaven grind was constantly rotating, and the soul power that filled the surroundings would be devoured and crushed by the heaven grind, turning into pure soul power that flowed out from the bottom and spread in all directions. This Noah tribe was equivalent to having pure soul power constantly pouring in. Over time, the physiques of the people living here would change. If Zichun's guess was correct, the people who lived near the heaven's grindstone would benefit the most as well. At this moment, there was a village that was carrying the soul-devouring beast forward. There were a total of 3 soul-devouring beasts. When they approached the divine soul heaven grind, a surge of energy gushed out from the divine soul heaven grind. The 3 sleeping soul-devouring beasts slowly floated up, and then flew up and entered the heaven grind. A rumbling sound came from the heaven grind, as if there were countless lightning and thunder revolving around it. Following that, an even purer soul force formed an intense ripple that spread out. The soul power blew Zichun's hair and robe. He took a deep breath, and a rich soul power entered his body and was refined by the ghost-devouring soul technique. He had obtained a surge of pure soul power. Zichun looked at the others again, and they all had an intoxicated look on their faces, but they did not obtain any substantial benefits. Then, there was a surprise cheer from the front. Life spirit fruits appeared from the bottom of the heaven grind, and there were more than 600 of them. Shanya went forward to negotiate, and Zichun was still looking at the heaven grind. It seemed that every time the soul-devouring beast was refined, the heaven grind would give the Noah tribe additional benefits. In this way, as long as it was properly managed, it was impossible for the tribe to be defeated. And it was actually very simple for a tribe to grow. They just needed to obtain a divine soul heaven grind. "Zichun, come quickly, it's our turn." Shanya waved at Zichun. Zichun carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward. "Oh, it's little Shanya." You haven't been here for a long time. Suddenly, a voice full of vigor rang out, and a shirtless man walked over. Along the way, everyone bowed to the burly man with a respectful expression. Shanya greets the chief. Shanya's expression changed when she saw the burly man walking over, but she still saluted him along with the others. Zichun was a little surprised. He didn't expect this person to be Noah, and he didn't expect him to know Shanya. No one came to Kata village for a long time. I was worried about you for a long time. I thought something happened to you. The brawny man said with a smile. It's okay. We're living a good life. It's just that we haven't gained much recently, Shanya said. The brawny man sighed and said, That's a pity. I've been looking forward to that old man's death. Once he's dead, you'll be free. You're talented. It's a pity to stay in Kata village. Shanya said with a serious face. Shanya is a man of Kata village. When he dies, he'll be a soul of Kata village. Good. Noah laughed and said, Go back and tell that old man to die early. That old man has been following that stupid rule. Kata village should have been destroyed long ago. Shanya's eyes were filled with suppressed anger. Noah didn't notice it at all. He turned to look at Zichun. You're from Kata village too? Why haven't I seen you before? Zichun and Noah looked at each other. In an instant, Zichun tensed up as if he saw a soul-devouring beast lurking in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. He had goosebumps all over his body, and his expression became extremely vigilant. This was the most dangerous existence Zichun had ever seen since he came to this world. Even though he had easily defeated the Izia leader a few hours ago, the moment he laid eyes on Noah, a feeling of invincibility rose in his heart. Zichun didn't reply immediately. Laughter came from all around. Haha, this kid is obviously scared out of his wits. The clan leader is mighty. With just a single sentence, he was able to scare a person so much that his soul nearly scattered. Hearing the mocking laughter, Zichun came back to his senses and nodded at Noah. Then, he carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward. When he came close to the heaven grindstone, a burst of energy flew out and the soul-devouring beast was automatically drawn into the grindstone. During this time, Noah looked at Zichun's back and fell into deep thought. As a person with strong soul power, he knew very well that the other party had been extremely vigilant just now. In the eyes of others, the other party was just scared out of his wits and didn't dare to speak. In fact, the other party was on guard, not out of fear or cowardice, but because he was preparing. He was preparing to attack. Although the other party's soul power was so weak that it couldn't withstand a single blow, his perception still moved Noah. However, he didn't care because the other party's soul power was too weak, much weaker than Shanya's. Moreover, the other party was in a broken place like Kata village. Even if he had a few decades, he wouldn't be able to reach his current height. Then, he saw the other party cheering excitedly because he saw the life spirit fruits one after another. Therefore, the vigilance in Noah's heart completely dissipated. If he paid attention to a guy who hadn't even seen the world, it would be a disgrace to him, the chief of the tribe. A total of 231 life spirit fruits was a big harvest. Even if he gave them a quarter of the cost of using the heaven grindstone, they would still gain a lot. According to the current population of Kata village, these harvests could be used for a while. After exchanging the items and deducting the share, Shanya put away all the life spirit fruits. Then, the two of them left. Help me pass a message to the old man. If he wants to die, die quickly. Kata's broken rules should have been changed long ago. When they left, Shanya heard Noah's words, but he didn't respond. Zichun followed Shanya, but he was silent all the way. At the gate, Shanya took out 4 life spirit fruits and gave them to the gatekeeper. Vern and Clark immediately came up, looking quite excited. This was the first harvest in Kata village in a few days. After leaving the Noah tribe, Zichun finally asked the question in his heart, Do you know the chief of the tribe? Noah sighed slightly and said, Many years ago, he was a member of our Kata village. At that time, he wanted to change Kata village to Noah village, but the village chief grandfather didn't want to. So he took some people and took the initiative to leave Kata village. In fact, it's not just Noah. In the history of Kata village, many people left for this reason. Zichun was slightly startled and said, "Just because of a name? Is it necessary? I don't understand, but for some people, it's all they have." When Shanya said this, Vern and Clark kept shaking their heads. They felt sorry for him and sighed at the same time. Kata village used to be very famous. The reason why it became like this was because many people couldn't see hope, so they left. Hanrue was like this, and Noah was even more so. In recent years, Noah was the most famous existence. If he was still in Kata village, it was believed that Kata village would have been strong again. Chapter 3652. Shanya didn't care about the name, but many people did. In fact, Shanya didn't understand why the village chief was so insistent. Zichun didn't ask much because he didn't belong here, so he might not understand Shanya's yearning. But fame and fortune were things that most people cared about no matter which world they were in. There must be a reason why the old man would rather watch Kata decline and didn't change this rule. But Zichun didn't care. He came here just for the test, even though he didn't know what the test was about. To put it bluntly, he was just a passerby and wouldn't stay here for long. As soon as the test was over, he would leave and never come back. Of course, he still had to help Kata village. On the way back, Shanya gave Zichun 13 life soul fruits, saying that it was an extra reward because Zichun had hunted the soul-eating beast last time all by himself. Zichun didn't refuse and put it in the cloth bag he borrowed from Iza. Along the way, he took out a fruit and ate it. Immediately, soul power appeared. After being refined by the dark ghost soul-eating method, his soul power increased a little. The only thing that made Zichun feel lucky was that the dark ghost soul-eating method could still be used here. Vern and Clark looked envious and even a little surprised. Even Shanya looked at Zichun a little more. Seeing the expressions of the three, Zichun said, "Do you know what the life soul fruit can do other than maintain basic life?" Clark nodded and said, "It can increase soul power. The more life soul fruits you eat, the faster your strength will increase." This point seemed to be useful to everyone, and the few of them were clearly aware of it as well. Zichun's heart was immediately filled with admiration. Obviously, Kata village survived because of Shanya and the others, and the price was that the four of them were burdened by more than 100 people, so their strength progress was extremely slow. He praised sincerely, "You guys are amazing." Shanya said calmly, "Actually, we didn't do anything. The people of Kata village could at most survive. If it weren't for Grandpa village chief and the others, we wouldn't have been able to survive until the time of awakening." Even so, Zichun still admired these people because it was very difficult to survive in this place, and knowing how to be grateful was extremely rare. Halfway through the journey back, the four-man team was once again stopped by someone. "Be careful, they are from Guduin village. Their leader, Guduin, has a bad reputation. He is extremely vicious and often plunder neighboring villages." When Shanya saw the people blocking their way, she reminded them in a low voice. There were a total of 8 people standing in front of them. The leader of the group was Gedon, the leader of Gedon village. He glanced at the 4 of them and finally looked at Zichun. He said directly, "I heard that you have mastered a higher level of soul binding chain?" Zichun's expression changed slightly. The so-called higher level of the soul binding chains was to be used with both hands at the same time. It was very simple for him, but for the people living here, it was equivalent to a miracle. It seemed that Iza was still not convinced, and that was why he found such a weapon. "Gedon, what do you want?" Shanya walked forward and said coldly, "You want to start a war with Kata?" Gedon heard this and said with disdain, "How dare Kata use the word war in front of me? If it weren't for your broken place, we would have taken over Kata a long time ago." Kata was one of the weakest villages in this area. After mastering the soul-shocking light, Shanya had received countless invitations. However, in those invitations, only Shanya was accepted, or Shanya was allowed to bring a few people with her. As for taking over Kata, not many villages were willing to do so. Because there were too many freeloaders, Shanya was not willing to use all of them as bait. Therefore, Kata had been living like this for a long time. "Cut the crap. Hand over the higher level of the soul-binding chains, and I can let you go. Otherwise, don't blame us for not showing mercy." "Gedon, you've gone too far," Shanya said angrily. Vern and Clark also stared at each other angrily. Zichen walked forward with an indifferent expression. There were no rules set by the strong here, so whoever had the bigger fist was the law. Right now, the law was the fist. When he was 10 feet away from Gedon, Zichen stopped. He looked at him and said, "Your village won't collapse because of you, right?" Gedon was stunned and confused. "Brat, do you want to fight our leader alone? Let me tell you, that's impossible. There's no such thing as fighting alone here." A skinny man next to Gedon sneered. Zichen looked at him and said, "Your reaction is not slow, but you've misunderstood me. But looking at your behavior, you don't look like people who don't leave a way out for themselves. Since that's the case, I'll teach you a lesson." This time, Gedon clearly understood Zichen's meaning. His eyes flashed with coldness. "You're asking for it." Shanya and the other two came forward. Zichen stretched out his hand and said, "You don't have to interfere. It's just 8 people. I should be able to deal with them." Shanya stopped. She seemed to believe in Zichen's words because she knew about the descenders. Vern and Clark looked at each other. "Kill him." Gedon waved his hand, and the 7 people behind him came forward. Soul power surged from their bodies. Zichen smiled coldly and holy runes appeared around him. After coming to this world, he had experienced 2 battles and understood the function of the holy runes. When used for the first time, the holy runes could completely repel the enemy if they were not expecting it. However, it could only repel the enemy and only serve as a deterrent. As for the lethality, it was almost useless. As such, as the heavenly energy saint arm whizzed forward, Zichen also took a step forward, dashing forward. Looking at the huge, heavenly saint arm in front of them, the 7 soul hunters' eyes were filled with fear. "Don't worry, he's just bluffing. There's no lethality at all," Gedon shouted. Apparently, he also knew from Ija that the holy runes had no lethality. The heavenly energy saint arm collapsed, and the soul hunters passed right through it, charging towards Zichen without any damage at all. Zichen's expression did not change much. In the next moment, another holy rune appeared. It was thunder. The moment it appeared, thunder rumbled and lightning surged, wreaking havoc in front of it. This scene was even more terrifying than the heavenly saint arm, and the shock it brought was also more intense. The 7 soul hunters no longer had any confidence in their hearts. The moment they paused, they were sent flying by the aftermath of the thunderbolt. As the 7 of them were sent flying, Zichen swept towards Gedon. The soul-binding chains wrapped around Gedon like lightning. Chapter 36:53. Seeing his 7 subordinates flying backward in an instant, Gedon was shocked and his expression changed. At this moment, Zichen used the soul-binding chains. There were indeed 2 chains, one on the left and one on the right. They were completely different from the ones they used. They were like lightning and their speed was much faster than the normal soul-binding chains. Gelton's eyes lit up. He no longer cared about the lives of his subordinates. He muttered and a light appeared in his palm, turning into a black blade. It was similar to Ija's soul-slashing blade, but bigger in size. It whizzed past him. Chi. Chi. The 2 soul-binding chains were cut in half instantly. Gelton laughed, and the black blade moved forward again, slashing towards Zichen's face. At this moment, Zichen was still moving forward without slowing down. He was about to meet the blade. "Kid, you're asking for it." Gelton's eyes were cold, and he was extremely confident. However, at this moment, Zichen's body suddenly tilted. The blade brushed past his body but did not hurt him at all. Gelton was stunned. There was a black light flowing in Zichen's palm. It was the soul-shocking light. He slammed his palm towards Gelton's heart. Gelton roared and used his soul power again. However, at this moment, the soul-binding chains appeared on both sides and wrapped around him like spiritual snakes, trapping him. Gelton's face changed. He did not know where the 2 soul-binding chains came from, but at this moment, he couldn't move his body at all. He could only watch as the palm print approached. Bang! There was a loud tremor and layers of soul power spread out from Gelton's heart. The strong impact sent Gelton flying. Just as Gelton was sent flying, Vern's exclamation came from behind. 4 chains, it's 4 chains. At this moment, everyone, including Shanya and Clark, looked in front of them in shock. Just now, Zichen's left and right hands had two soul-binding chains. Jeltun only destroyed two of them. The other two caught him off guard and trapped him. The soul-shocking light that followed decided the outcome of the battle between the two. Gudun's body flew backwards and landed on the ground. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with anger because the surging soul power around his opponent was clearly very weak. It was not even comparable to his. He said angrily, "Are you guys dead yet? If you're not dead, then go." A shout came from behind. Although the thunder sweep looked very scary, it did not have any power at all. The 7 of them were completely immune to it. When they heard Gudun's shout, they rushed forward again. The previous soul-shocking light had consumed a lot of Zichen's soul. Seeing the 7 of them coming together, Zichen said coldly, "Even if I only use the soul-binding chains, it's enough to deal with you." As soon as he finished speaking, he stretched out his hands. Black soul chains immediately flew out from his palms. This time, there were a total of 7 of them, 4 on his right hand and 3 on his left. Furthermore, with a speed faster than before, they quickly wrapped around the 7 people. In the next moment, the soul rope was stretched taut. Zichen exerted force with both hands, and the 7 of them began to dance in the air. Their bodies were completely out of control. The 7 of them began to yell and scream. At this moment, Zichen's hands moved up and down, and the bodies of the 7 people moved up and down. They flew to a high place, and then suddenly fell down. With a bang, they hit the ground hard. Then, they flew up again. When they reached a high place, they suddenly fell down again. Boom, boom, boom. The ground was constantly shaking, and smoke and dust were everywhere. Deep pits were formed one after another. Their screams turned into screams. Shanya and the other 2 people behind were dumbfounded. They were petrified and could not say a word. Zichen had destroyed this team in a short time. When the last scream disappeared, the 7 of them had all fainted. The 7 of them fell to the ground, motionless. Gudun, who was angry before, was almost scared out of his wits. This battle had completely subverted his understanding. Could the soul-binding chains be used like this? Looking at the 7 motionless people on the ground, Vern and Clark recovered from the shock. They looked at each other, and there was the same shock and doubt in their eyes. At the same time, there was a light in their eyes, as if they had seen the dawn of the soul-binding chains. Only Shanya shook her head and said, "It's not the same. We're not the same. Zichen's soul-binding chains are completely different from ours." The soul-binding chains were the most basic soul magic in this world. All the newly awakened soul hunters could basically use it, but why did few people use it against their enemies? It was because they were not tough enough. Once there was a great force, the soul-binding chains would be broken in an instant. Many people had the idea that they could use it against their enemies at will like Zichen, but no one had such a tough soul-binding chains. Vern and Clark obviously guessed the crux of the matter, so they shook their heads dejectedly. This was the gap between them. It was the same spell technique, but in the hands of different people, the power was clearly different. Zichen walked towards Gudun. "What are you doing? Don't come over. Don't come over." At this moment, his eyes were full of fear. Zichen comforted him. "Don't worry, I won't kill you." But looking at Zichen, who was still walking forward, how could Gudun not worry? "Sir, please don't kill me. I was instigated by Iza. He wanted me to fight against you," Gudun said in fear. "I know." Zichen came in front of Gudun, then bent down and took the life spirit fruit before Gudun's terrified expression. "I only want this. I won't kill anyone." Zichen stood up and looked at Gudun, saying, "The next time you come to trouble me, I hope you bring more life spirit fruits. Otherwise, I will look down on you." With that, Zichen turned around and looted the life spirit fruits on the other 7 people, obtaining a total of 14 fruits. He immediately swallowed 2 fruits, then said to Gudun, who was still in a daze, "We'll meet again next time." Gudun shuddered. After encountering such a terrifying person, how could he dare to meet again? He looked at the unconscious people beside him and sighed inwardly. Then he looked at Zichen's back and sighed. "I really don't know where this guy came from. It seems that Kata village is really lucky this time. It's going to rise again." At the entrance of Kata village, The children had been waiting there for a long time, raising their heads in anticipation. Finally, they saw Zichun. Instantly, the children cheered and ran out of the village. The old man stood at the entrance of the village with a smile on his face. Although Hanrui had left, with Zichun as a descender, Kata village's overall strength did not weaken, but instead became stronger. Coupled with the sudden decrease in population, the old man just needed to focus on nurturing these children. He believed that in the future, Kata village would be able to welcome the dawn and achieve glory again. Shanya looked at the children running over with a smile on her face. She gave each child a life spirit fruit. After receiving the life spirit fruit, the children were very excited and smiled foolishly. They had been hungry for 2 days, but they did not eat the life spirit fruit immediately. Instead, they put it away, planning to eat it when they could no longer bear the hunger. Shanya's nose twitched, and she was very ashamed. Eat. You won't be hungry from now on. Zichun looked at the children and smiled. From now on, we will have many life spirit fruits. Chapter 36:54. There were more than 100 life spirit fruits, one for each of them, and there was still a surplus. The surplus life spirit fruits were still with the village chief as before. Zichun had decided that he would go out with everyone tomorrow morning to hunt the soul-eating beast. At night, Zichun continued to cultivate. Although the soul power here was far less than in the Noah tribe, it was still much stronger than in the Saint Spirit realm. Zichun used the dark ghost soul-eating technique, and his soul power began to grow. This was the difference between him and Shanya. He had mastered the soul refining technique, so he could improve his soul power anytime and anywhere. After a night of cultivation, Zichun had made a lot of progress. The next day, as the sky brightened, Shanya got up early. Vern and Clark could not wait any longer. They wanted to see how the powerful Zichun would fare against the equally powerful soul-eating beast. Under the expectant gaze of the villagers, the 4 of them walked out of Kata village. At this moment, their eyes were shining, as if they had seen the infinite dawn. Zichun began his first real hunt. Outside a dense forest, the 4 of them stopped. Shanya pointed to the dense forest in front of them and said, "This is where we hunt. The soul-eating beast is inside, but we are not sure when we will encounter it." After a slight pause, Shanya continued, "Moreover, the soul-eating beast sometimes travels in groups, so we need to be extremely careful and only dare to choose one opponent." Zichun nodded and said, "Let's go. We need to be careful too." Deep in the forest, Zichun could clearly feel that the 3 of them were in a state of tension and were very careful. Relatively speaking, Zichun was the more relaxed one. Last time, he had already hunted a soul-devouring beast, even though that soul-devouring beast was not caught by him, but by the ghost spirit's Saint Talisman. Moreover, Zichun had tried to draw the ghost spirit's Saint Talisman, but he could no longer draw it. Therefore, this hunt in the forest completely depended on his true ability. After a few thousand feet, Shanya looked around and immediately hid behind a big tree. She waved her hand at Vern. The 2 of them quickly dodged and jumped into a big tree. At the same time, Shanya also leaped up. Zichun was a little confused. Shanya said in a low voice, "There are traces of the soul-devouring beast here. If we wait here, we might find something." Hearing Shanya's explanation, Zichun finally understood why their harvest was always so little. Using this kind of ancient method of waiting for rabbits to show up, it would be strange if there was a lot to be gained. But in the end, it was still because they were not strong enough. After understanding Shanya's intentions, Zichun said, "You guys stay here and guard. I'll go lure a soul-devouring beast over." Upon hearing this, Shanya's expression changed. Vern and Clark also waved their hands. They knew all too well how powerful the soul-devouring beast was. If Zichun were to act so rashly, he would be in great danger. "It doesn't matter." Zichun waved his hand and walked into the depths. He was lucky. After walking for only 200 feet, he perceived that there was an abnormality around him. Then, the leaves fluttered and there was a sudden wind. A black shadow flew from the side, and a murderous aura instantly filled the surroundings. It was the soul-devouring beast. When he first came to this world, Zichun encountered a similar attack. At that time, He could only passively accept his fate and pray for a miracle to happen. Now, facing the same crisis again, a cold light surged in his eyes, and his body was surrounded by soul light. The soul-devouring beast pounced, but Zichun stood motionless. Only his soul power was flowing quickly, forming ripples in his palm. At the same time, several soul chains appeared in his left hand and flew forward. In an instant, the soul chains wrapped around the soul-devouring beast, causing the beast's forward body to pause slightly. Zichun's right hand slapped forward. Soul-shocking light. Buzz. Countless ripples erupted from his palm, forming circles of soul ripples that spread out. Only to hear a dull tremor coming out, the soul-devouring beast's body flew out. After landing, the soul-devouring beast's body began to twitch. After struggling a few times, it fell to the ground. It did not die, but its soul suffered serious damage and fell into a coma. There was movement a few hundred feet away. Shanya and the other two hurriedly jumped down from the tree and rushed forward. After seeing Zichun, the three of them were completely stunned. A soul-devouring beast fell at Zichun's feet, motionless. Zichun stood there, breathing slightly hurried. The previous attack consumed a lot of energy. Fortunately, the result was also amazing. The three of them immediately came forward, sizing up the soul-devouring beast on the ground, their emotions surging. Once when Hanrue was here, the four of them joined forces to catch such a soul-devouring beast, but the difficulty was not small. They did not expect it to be so simple for Zichun. Zichun directly took out 2 life soul fruits and put them into his mouth. He had used all his strength in the previous soul-shocking light, which consumed a lot of energy. Shanya came to Zichun's side and asked curiously, "How did you do it?" "The same way as you." Zichun thought for a moment and said, "It's just that my soul-binding chains are slightly faster and more tenacious." Shanya obviously knew that this was just an extremely modest statement from Zichun. If it was only slightly better, they would not be so embarrassed. In the past, as long as they hunted a soul-devouring beast, they would turn back. But today they had just come out, and the three of them had not made a move yet. It was too early to go back now. Zichun turned to look at Shanya and said, "We have to leave one of us to guard the trophies." Obviously, Zichun also had plans to continue to go deeper. Vern immediately said, "Leave it to me. You guys continue to go deeper." Shanya and Clark looked at each other and nodded in agreement. After Zichun's soul power recovered and even increased a little, the three of them went deeper again. With the previous battle, Zichun also had a better understanding of his own strength, so this time, he was a little bolder. There were not many things in this place, but the number of soul-devouring beasts was not small. After walking for about 2 miles on the mountain road, they found soul-devouring beasts again. This time it was not 1, but 2. After seeing 2 soul-devouring beasts together, Clark and Shanya's faces changed dramatically. Zichun, on the other hand, charged forward without hesitation. Shanya shouted to be careful. "Prepare the soul-shocking light. Clark, come with me." Zichun ordered loudly. 10 soul-binding chains flew out from his hands and wrapped around the 2 soul-devouring beasts that had already attacked. Just as Zichun said, his soul-binding chains were very fast and very tenacious. In an instant, they wrapped around the 2 soul-devouring beasts. Compared to Zichun's soul-binding chains, Clark's chains were too insignificant. The 2 soul-devouring beasts' bodies were entangled in mid-air, and there was a momentary pause. Chapter 36:55. Ripples surged in her palm. Shanya's eyes were cold. She swept forward and pressed her palm on the soul-eating beast's head. Her timing was perfect, and her attack was precise. There was a loud bang. Countless ripples spread out, and the soul-eating beast's body flew backward. Just as it was flying backward, the soul-binding chain around the soul-eating beast disappeared. Immediately after, Zichun exerted force with his other hand, and the second soul-eating beast flew toward him. There was a snap. Because the force was too great, the soul-binding chain that Clark released collapsed. Clark shook his head and smiled bitterly. The difference was too great. The second soul-eating beast arrived in front of Zichun. Zichun, who was already prepared, slammed his palm down. Buzz. Countless ripples surged, and the soul-shocking light exploded between the soul-eating beast's eyebrows, forming a powerful vibration force. The second soul-eating beast flew backward and crashed into the ground far away. At this time, Shanya did not successfully knock the soul-eating beast out with her first attack. She swept forward again and released the second soul-shocking light. There was another huge quake, and the airwaves spread out, sending countless leaves flying. The soul-eating beast howled and fell to the ground. Standing in front of the fallen soul-eating beast, Shanya heaved a sigh of relief. After a few days, she finally gained something again. But compared to Zichun, her gain was nothing. If she did not know about Zichun, she would not have believed that a person who could hunt a soul-eating beast in an instant was a person who could not move easily 2 days ago. Clark looked at the 2 soul-eating beasts on the ground and said excitedly, "Should we go back now?" Clark had never experienced hunting 3 soul-eating beasts in one go before. Taking out 2 life soul fruits and swallowing them, Zichun said, "Clark, you stay here. We'll go in and take a look." Clark's eyes lit up. Of course, he did not have any objections. Zichun looked at Shanya. Shanya took out a life soul fruit and ate it reluctantly. It was very clear that she had never experienced such a luxurious life. Under normal circumstances, after expending all of her soul power, she would wait for herself to slowly recover. Zichun said with a smile, "In that case, we will be able to regain our greatest strength in a short period of time. Although we will have wasted a life soul fruit, our gains will be far greater than 1 life soul fruit." After recovering their soul power, the 2 of them continued their hunt. Vern stayed where he was, guarding the unconscious soul-eating beast. At this moment, he was quite excited. Of course, there was still a sense of guilt in his heart. Not only had he abandoned the villagers, but he had also abandoned Shanya. Fortunately, it was Zichun. In fact, the moment he saw that Shanya was still alive, he was filled with gratitude towards Zichun. What surprised him even more was that Zichun's combat strength was so strong that he could hunt a soul-devouring beast on his own. As long as Zichun continued to stay with Kata, he believed that Kata's future life would be better. He looked in the direction that Zichun had left and thought to himself that the 3 of them had left. When they returned, they would definitely have a harvest. And when he thought that he could hunt 2 soul-eating beasts this time, or even 3, he became even more excited. Once he brought 3 soul-eating beasts to the Noah tribe, the people of the other small tribes along the way would definitely cast strange glances at them. After all, Kata had always brought only 1 soul-eating beast, and often met with disdain from many people. Suddenly, there was a movement in front of them. Vern's expression changed abruptly. His previous excitement had disappeared, and his eyes revealed a deep sense of vigilance. Zichun and the others had not returned yet. If a soul-eating beast came at this time, he would die. Unless he ran away. Vern gritted his teeth. He glanced at the soul-eating beast behind him, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "I have run away once. I will not run away again." In front of him, a soul-eating beast really appeared. Beads of cold sweat fell from his forehead. Black light lingered in Vern's palm. A swooshing sound was heard, and there seemed to be a strong wind flowing. Vern stared ahead, and gradually revealed a touch of strangeness in his vigilant eyes, because he found that there seemed to be something wrong with the soul-eating beast. The soul-eating beast's body was horizontally, one above the other. When he saw the soul-devouring beast clearly, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. The soul-eating beast was being carried. No wonder it was strange. It was Zichun. Vern wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "That was close." Then, he saw Shanya and Clark behind Zichun, and the soul-eating beast behind them. Looking at the number of soul-eating beasts, Vern's face immediately revealed a look of excitement. There were a total of 5 soul-eating beasts. Including the one in front of him, there were 6 soul-eating beasts. 6 at a time. At this moment, he was extremely excited, because he never thought that Kata village would have such a big harvest. "We can go back now," Zichun, who was carrying a soul-eating beast, said. He found that this could also train himself and increase his soul power. As for Shanya and Clark, each of them was dragging 2 soul-eating beasts. Today, they really had a big harvest. When they arrived at the village entrance, a group of children had already surrounded them. After seeing the harvest of Zichun and the rest, they were all very excited. Cheers were incessant, and all the children were running circles around their prey. They were very happy. The old man stood at the village entrance. Although he didn't say anything, his trembling body told of his excitement at this moment. The other villagers also ran out and were instantly stunned by the harvest. Many people were so happy that they cried silently. Their kata village hadn't been so rich for many years. In the past, they barely had enough to eat and wear. If it wasn't for Shanya silently sacrificing for them, they would have died long ago. The old man calmed down. The appearance of a descender had indeed changed their fate. Now that they didn't have to worry about survival, they should think about development. It seems that it's time to abdicate and let the world know about kata. The old man sighed in his heart, but he had already made up his mind. The children were still cheering, and Shanya was also smiling. Her smile was as pure as the children's. Zichun was also infected by the children's smiles, and he also had a smile on his face. At this moment, the villagers looked at Zichun with eyes full of gratitude. Obviously, Zichun had saved them. At this moment, a strange sound came from not far away, and a group of savages appeared outside Kata village. The laughter stopped abruptly, and all the children looked at the savages with deep fear in their eyes. Zichun looked back, and the smile on his face disappeared when he saw the newcomers. Chapter 36:56. Those who appeared outside the village were not the real savages. 2 days ago, after learning of Shanya's death, they left Kata village decisively. At that time, they took all the fated soul fruits and even abandoned their wives and children. They took the fated soul fruits and left decisively to find a way to survive. At that time, the village was in despair. The children's hearts suffered a great impact. If it wasn't for Zichun coming back with Shanya and a soul-eating beast that gave them hope, no one knew what Kata's fate would be in the future. Obviously, those who left at that time did not have the ability to survive, because the fated soul fruits could only last for a few days. Without soul power, once they joined other villages, they would inevitably be used as bait to catch the soul-eating beast. So, after hearing some news, they came back. The laughter all around disappeared. Zichun's face was slightly cold, but he did not say anything. Shanya looked at these people with mixed feelings. She was sad for a long time that night when she was saved by Zichun. Let's go. Take the things in. We'll exchange them tomorrow. The quiet atmosphere was broken by Zichun. He walked towards Kata village with 2 soul-eating beasts. Clark and Vern did not say anything, because at that time, they made the same choice. The only difference was that they did not do anything to snatch the fated soul fruits. The 2 also walked into the village with the soul-eating beasts. Their families were also sent back by Iz's people, unharmed. Shanya looked at these haggard and embarrassed people, her heart full of disappointment. She also walked into Kata village. Kata village had a village chief, so the people's departure was naturally decided by the old man. This was also the reason why Zichun went in first. Back in the room, Zichun began to cultivate. In this place, his soul power could always be strengthened. About half an hour later, there was a knock on the door. Zichun went to open the door and saw the old man standing at the door. Zichun nodded slightly to the old man and stepped aside. The old man walked in. I left them here. The old man took the initiative to say. Zichun smiled slightly and did not say anything. The old man was the village chief, so it was natural for him to have the final say. Glancing at the silent Zichun, the old man continued, even though what they did was wrong, I still decided to give them a chance. Furthermore, some of the buildings need to be repaired, and their labor is needed. Zichun nodded and said, That's good. Seeing that Zichun was not agitated, the old man said, This time, I'm here to show you something. It's passed down from generation to generation in Kata, but we can't understand it. Maybe you can find some clues. Only then did Zichun notice that the old man was holding something in his hand. It was a black stone ball that was about the same size as the life soul fruit. This stone orb looked too ordinary and irregular. No matter how one looked at it, it looked like it was randomly picked up from the side of the road. There were no patterns on it. However, looking at the old man's serious expression, It was obvious that the origin of this stone orb was not ordinary. Zichun took the stone orb and carefully sensed it. The stone orb was very ordinary. When he first sensed it, there was no abnormality. The old man said, "This was passed down from generation to generation in Kata village. During this period, we tried countless methods, but we couldn't find out the secret of this stone orb." Light appeared in Zichun's hand, and he poured his soul power into the stone orb. The stone orb that was originally normal seemed to have become hollow at this moment, and soul power was constantly being poured into it. There was a hint of surprise in Zichun's eyes. The old man's eyes lit up. As a former soul hunter, his soul power gradually faded as he grew old, so the old man naturally saw the changes in the stone orb. Energy was constantly being poured into the stone orb. The original black stone orb gradually changed, and a black wave surged out. Buzz. Finally, the black light in the stone orb exploded, and the light completely enveloped Zichun. Zichun held the stone orb in his hand, motionless. "Zichun?" the old man shouted, but Zichun did not respond. The old man's expression changed, and he was a little worried. At the moment when the black light exploded, Zichun felt a strong suction from the stone orb. Then, he felt his soul being forcefully pulled out of his body. His consciousness was empty, and Zichun found himself in another space. This space was hazy, and everywhere was filled with soul power. "What is this place?" Zichun's expression changed slightly, and he looked around vigilantly. Finally, "Someone is here." A faint sigh suddenly came from behind Zichun. Zichun turned around abruptly, soul power flowing around his body, and the soul shock light had formed a ripple in his palm. A middle-aged man stood in front, wearing a black robe, with his hands behind his back, and his eyes were filled with emotion. "Who are you?" Zichun asked cautiously. The middle-aged man looked at the faint light pattern in Zichun's palm and said, "No wonder you can come to the Card Tower world. Your soul is so condensed." "Card Tower world?" Zichun was startled, and he did not understand. The middle-aged man smiled. "Let me introduce myself. I am Kata, and the name of the Card Tower world was given by me. As for what it used to be called, it has been too long, and I can't remember clearly." Zichun's expression changed. "Kata? You are Kata? The first village chief of Kata village?" "Kata village?" This time, it was Kata who was stunned. However, after seeing the change in Zichun's expression, he sighed and said, "It turns out that Kata has already declined to this extent." Zichun then remembered what Shanya had said. Kata used to be very glorious, but because the rules did not change, generations of geniuses could not see any hope of leaving, which led to Kata becoming weaker and weaker. For example, Noah, who founded the Noah tribe, came from Kata. Looking at Zichun's changing expression, Kata said, "Looks like there is always a way out, or it is another round of reincarnation. What is your name?" "Zichun." Kata nodded and said, "Very good. After many years of waiting, I have completed my mission, and the rest is up to you." "What do you mean?" Zichun did not understand. "You can remove Kata's name." Kata stared at Zichun's eyes and said, "Kata will change his name to Zichun, and from now on, his fate will be closely linked to yours. Every time you grow, you will get extra rewards." Zichun still did not understand, but he understood what he meant. Kata had been following the rules and obsessions of the village chiefs for so many years, and this generation would change. Kata village would become Zichun village. This also meant that Kata would disappear. When you leave the Card Tower world, you will naturally understand what I said. Of course, you can also say that it is Zichun world. Chapter 36:57. At this moment, Zichun was still confused. He didn't know what was going on. He only understood that Kata village would become Zichun village. As for what the Kata world or Zichun world was, Zichun didn't know at all. Could it be that irregular black stone? Zichun suddenly thought of this possibility. In this world, there is only soul power. Kata said in a deep voice, "Soul power is the foundation of everything, because the strength of soul power is divided into several realms." This was the first time Zichun heard about the realms of soul power. He immediately threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind and listened attentively. Every person who awakens soul power will officially enter the soul power realm. The strength of soul power is divided into 9 realms. After soul power is the soul illusionary realm. Once you reach this realm, you and the place you are at will receive great benefits. Kata glanced at Zichun and said, "As for what the benefits are, you will naturally understand when you reach that realm." Zichun asked, "What about after the soul illusionary realm? Are there realms?" After hearing Zichun's question, Kata looked at Zichun with an indescribable emotion in his eyes. "Whether there are realms or not, you will have to explore them yourself. If you walk steadily, you might be able to walk further and see more sights. If not, you might not even have the qualifications to come into contact with the soul illusionary realm." "Why?" Zichun asked. Kata didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "When you reach a certain level, you will naturally understand. Now, I will teach you the soul control technique." "What is the soul control technique?" Zichun asked again. Actually, he had a lot of questions right now. The soul control technique is the foundation of your life in this world. It will allow you to have a deeper understanding of the soul power in this world. Kata stretched out his hand and pointed at the space between Zichun's eyebrows. A ray of pure soul power flowed out from Kata's fingertip and entered the space between Zichun's eyebrows. In an instant, all kinds of soul power information appeared. Along with the appearance of this information, Kata's figure in front of them was slowly weakening. "The Kata realm is a gift I left for you, and something you need to pass on." When his figure completely disappeared, Kata's voice echoed in Zichun's sea of consciousness. "You can call it the Zichun realm." Kata's figure disappeared. In the room, the old man looked at the motionless Zichun and became more and more worried. Kata had been in decline for a long time. There was even a history of the village chief abandoning the village, so he had forgotten many things. The old man himself did not know what this black stone was, whether it was good or bad. At this moment, the old man's heart was filled with regret. If something really happened to Zichun because of this black stone, then he had directly destroyed Kata's hope of rising again. Just as the old man's expression was filled with worry, the black stone in Zichun's hand gradually lost its light. The old man stared at Zichun nervously. Zichun opened his eyes. There was a dazed look in his eyes. "Zichun?" The old man worriedly shouted. He was very worried that Zichun would lose his soul and become an idiot. Zichun's eyes gradually regained their spirit. He looked at the old man and smiled, saying, "I'm fine." The old man heaved a sigh of relief. He patted his chest and said, "That was so close. This old man was almost scared to death by you. If something really happened to you, this old man would not be able to forgive you even if I died 10,000 times." Zichun could feel the old man's mood. He smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just saw someone." "Someone?" The old man was startled. Zichun was standing here. How could he see someone else? "Kata, I just saw Ka." Zichun looked at the black stone in his hand. After his consciousness left, he knew the use of the black stone. It was similar to a spatial object that could store things. It was originally called the Kata realm, but now it could be called the Zichun realm. The old man was completely dumbfounded. He looked at Zichun in disbelief, as if he had been frightened. "You, what did you say? Kata? Which Kata?" The old man's voice was trembling. "The Kata that you think it is." Zichun turned around, opened the door, and walked out of the room. He looked at the small village. After he regained his consciousness, he gained a better understanding of this world. At the same time, he also understood the old man's meaning. The old man walked out trembling, looking very excited. Kata was the legend of Kata village. He did not expect that Zichun would be able to see that legend. He was just a thought. He should have disappeared by now. Before the old man could ask, Zichun took the initiative to say. The old man sighed. Although he had guessed it, he still felt very regretful. Zichun said, "So, you are really not worried about leaving this place to me?" After understanding the rules here, he knew the old man's intention. "Yes, very much so." The old man said excitedly, "Everything here will be up to you from now on." He had seen Zichun's means. As long as he stayed here, Kata would definitely grow stronger. Zichun smiled and said, "What if I want to change the name? Should I change Kata to Zichun?" The old man was stunned and puzzled at first, but then he reacted and said, "Since you are the village chief, everything will be up to you. But it seems that it is not easy to change the name." Obviously, in history, there were leaders who did this, but they did not succeed, so they left Kata village. Zichen said, "Kata told me that the rule has been cancelled. The name of this village can be changed." The old man nodded and did not say anything, but he felt sad that Kata, who had always been here, disappeared. Unexpectedly, Zichen changed the topic and said, "But I don't think it is necessary. The name Kata is actually quite good." The old man looked at Zichun in disbelief. "Are you sure? Why did Noah and the others leave Kata and choose to develop in other villages?" "Because once you become the village chief, you will be connected to the whole village. Every time you increase your realm, you will get extra benefits." But the premise was that the name of the village must be the same as that of the village chief, or the leader. Zichen's actions clearly meant that he had voluntarily given up on that reward. Zichen, of course, already knew about the reward. It could be said that after his consciousness returned, he was really recognized by this world, so he knew more about the rules of this world. He was confident that he could bring Kata to glory, but he did not have the confidence to let Kata continue to be so glorious. He believed that after a few years, the glorious Zichen village might become like this. Obviously, Zichen did not want to see that. So, he did not plan to change the name of Kata. Even if this place declined again after a few years, Zichen would not feel guilty. Zichen looked up at the sky and said, "From now on, this is still Kata village." This voice sounded like an oath, but also like an oath. At this moment, a light of the rules fell from the sky and fell on Zichen. At the same time, the whole Kata village was shrouded by the power of the rules. It was as if someone had poked a hole in the sky, and countless soul energy poured down. Chapter 36:58. The light of the rules was like an inverted bowl, completely enveloping this small village. It was as if someone had poked a hole in the sky, and countless energy fell from the sky. The entire village was completely enveloped by soul power. Countless soul rain passed through the houses and fell on the villagers. Feeling the soul power contained in the rain, Zichun smiled and closed his eyes. The ghost-devouring soul technique began to operate, absorbing the surrounding energy. The old man stood behind Zichun and raised his head to look at the sky. When the energy that descended from the sky landed on his body, a feeling that he had not felt in a long time welled up in his heart. Just like when he first had soul power, his originally old body seemed to have become young again at this moment. He became incomparably excited, thinking that the Descenders were indeed powerful. They had just become the leader, but they had obtained so many benefits. Exclamations came from the houses, and the villagers ran out of their houses in a panic, not knowing what had happened. Zichen opened his eyes. Among these people, he saw Vern and Clark. The soul power around their bodies was obviously increasing. After obtaining the recognition of this world, Zichen also understood the division of realms in this world. Vern and Clark were already at the peak of the first level, only one step away from the second level. At this moment, their soul power was still increasing under the changes of the world, and he believed that they would soon break through to the second level. Then, Zichun saw Shanya and saw her realm at a glance. Second level of soul power. However, this realm only lasted for an extremely short period of time, and Shanya broke through again, advancing to the third level. Apart from the obvious changes of the three soul hunters, the other people in the village had also obtained many benefits. Especially those who were previously sallow and emaciated, their condition had obviously improved greatly. Zichen looked around. Among them, the ones who had gained the most were the children. The soul power falling from the sky was like a seed, buried in their hearts, waiting to be continuously watered in the future, slowly taking root and germinating. A new generation of soul hunters would be born from them. This phenomenon lasted for a full hour before dispersing. After the vision disappeared, there were cheers all around. Vern and Clark were the most excited. Vern shouted excitedly, "I've become stronger. I've become stronger." Clark nodded and was equally excited. "I seem to have become stronger too." "It's not as if. You guys have really become stronger." Zichun stepped forward and said, "Now, try to comprehend the soul-shocking light. You should be able to succeed." "Really?" The two of them looked at Zichun with unconcealable excitement. Zichun smiled, nodded, and said, "Go. Try to get a night's worth of comprehension so that we can exchange for the life soul fruit tomorrow." Zichun also saw his own realm when he saw the others' realms. He was at the second level of soul force, and he had just broken through. He had only been at the first level before. Perhaps it was because of the dark ghost devouring technique, but his soul force was extremely condensed and powerful. In fact, it wasn't any weaker than Shanya's third-level soul force. What on earth is going on? Shanya stepped forward and looked at Zichun in confusion. Kata village couldn't have received such great benefits without any reason. Something must have happened. The old man stepped forward, glanced at the villagers, and said, "Everyone, listen to me." His voice was no longer hoarse, and even the wrinkles on his face had lessened. Everyone looked at the old man, surprised by his changes. The old man cleared his throat and said, "From today onwards, Kata village has a new leader. He is Zichun." The villagers were stunned at first, but then they cheered. Among the cheering crowd, the children were the most excited. They circled around Zichun and cheered loudly. Shanya was the most excited because she had been worried that Zichun would suddenly leave. Now that he had become the leader, of course, he wouldn't leave. With a strong leader like Zichun, Kata village would only get better and better. Thinking that the villagers wouldn't have to starve in the future, Shanya was so excited that she stepped forward and hugged Zichun. She was really happy. The surrounding cheers came to an abrupt halt as everyone looked at Shanya. Shanya reacted, and her cheeks immediately turned red. She turned and ran back to her house. Seeing this, the old man nodded, and a mysterious smile appeared on his face. The other villagers were all sizing up their new leader with strange gazes. Zichun felt very uncomfortable, so he turned and went back to his room. The cheers outside didn't stop for a long time. Zichun looked at the Kata realm in his hand. It was something like a spatial spirit ring, but it wasn't very big. In addition, Zichun's other gain was the spirit control spell. Through the spirit control spell, he understood more about this world. His perception of the level of soul power also came from the spirit control spell itself. At the same time, there were other spirit spells in the spirit control spell, but Zichun needed to slowly understand them. At this time, there was a knock on the door again. Zichun opened the door. It was the old man. The old man was holding a large cloth bag. Under normal circumstances, this bag was filled with life spirit fruits. "You have become the new leader, so you should be in charge of the life spirit fruits," the old man said. "During this time, we will also build a new leader's residence." The place Zichun was living in was extremely ordinary. After becoming the leader, of course, he would live in a better place. Zichun didn't refuse the matter of living in a place like this, because in a place like this, the leader was the symbol and everyone's belief. However, Zichun didn't accept the life spirit fruits, because he would be going out often and wouldn't have time to distribute them. The old man was obviously more skilled in this kind of thing. The old man didn't refuse and readily agreed. After the old man left, Zichun ate 2 more life spirit fruits and then continued to cultivate. He didn't know if it was because he had become the leader, but his cultivation speed had obviously sped up. After the sky brightened, his second-level realm had obviously increased. Zichun got up and stretched. He was puzzled. After becoming the leader, his realm had obviously increased. Why did the original leaders abandon Kata and set up another sect? Shanya and the other two had already woken up early. Speaking of which, obtaining 6 soul-devouring beasts at once was an unprecedented harvest. The 3 of them were extremely excited. Chapter 36:59. Vern and Clark were very excited, but this kind of excitement completely disappeared after Zichun asked them if they had comprehended the soul-shocking light. The two did not dare to slack off after a night of comprehension, but they still did not comprehend anything as before. Looking at the two who were obviously in low spirits, Zichun comforted them. "Take your time. According to the current strength of your soul power, there will be a day when you will comprehend it." Whether it was Shanya or the two, they did not know the existence of the soul power realm, nor did they know their own realm level. Really? The two looked at Ziqian with anticipation in their eyes. In the past few days, Ziqian had given them a great shock, so subconsciously, they had completely trusted Ziqian and even relied on him. Ziqian nodded. He did not lie to the two. Perhaps the two's comprehension was not high, but as long as their soul power continued to improve, it would not be difficult to comprehend the soul-shocking light. Everything was just a matter of time. On this journey, no danger occurred again, and no ignorant existence took the initiative to find trouble. The Noah tribe was already in sight. Ziqian glanced at the 6 soul-eating beasts and said, "For the next 6 soul-eating beasts, Shanya and I will each take one. Vern and Clark will each take one. The remaining 3 will be left in the village for everyone to use." Vern and Clark were a little hesitant when they heard this. After all, the two did nothing this time, but they had to share an entire soul-eating beast. That was equivalent to more than 100 life spirit fruits. This number was so huge that it was simply unimaginable. Looking at the two hesitating, Ziqian said directly, "It's settled this time. After the next hunt, we will talk about the distribution. You two don't be stingy. If you want to become stronger, you can only continue to refine the life spirit fruits." The two nodded, their eyes full of gratitude. As for Shanya, she had no objection because Ziqian's words were in order to her. The 4 of them brought the 6 soul-eater beasts and entered the Noah tribe. They gave the guards 4 life soul fruits as an entrance fee. Along the way, many people looked at the 4 of them strangely, especially those who knew Shanya and knew the situation of Kata village. They were extremely shocked. How could Kata village, which had long declined and could be destroyed at any time, hunt 6 soul-eating beasts at once? Ziqian carried a soul-devouring beast and swept his gaze across the crowd. During this time, he saw a familiar face. It was Ija. His opponent was also staring at him. When their eyes met, Ziqian's lips curled into a smile. Ija's eyes were filled with fear, and he subconsciously stepped back. Ever since he knew that Gedon had been defeated, he was filled with fear. He was worried that Ziqian would come knocking on his door. Ziqian ignored Ija and walked straight towards the God Soul Heaven grindstone. Along the way, everyone's attention was attracted by the 4 of them. Shanya walked in the front and arranged everything for them. Buzz. The God Soul Heaven grindstone glowed. The 6 soul-eating beasts slowly floated up and entered the God Soul Heaven grindstone. As the soul-eating beasts were disintegrated, a surge of soul power spread out. Ziqian seized this opportunity and used the ghost soul devouring technique to refine a lot of energy. His soul power had an obvious increase. 6 soul-eating beasts, a total of more than 1,400 life spirit fruits. It was a huge harvest. After paying a certain amount of remuneration, Shanya kept the rest of the life spirit fruits and the 4 of them left. This time, the Noah leader did not appear. It was unknown if he had gone out to hunt. On the way back, Shanya and the other 2 were extremely excited. They had never seen so many life spirit fruits in their lives. Ziqian took 10 of them in advance and ate them like candy along the way. This made the 3 of them extremely envious. After returning to Kata village, Ziqian took his portion of the remuneration and gave the rest to the old man. Moreover, Ziqian informed that the children in the village could get 1 life spirit fruit every day. As for the adults, it was 1 every 2 days. At the same time, they would be rewarded according to their labor. For example, when building houses required some labor, they would give extra life spirit fruits as remuneration. The old man agreed to it one by one. He would not have any objections to Ziqian's arrangements. After all, they could not even guarantee 1 every 3 days. Although the children were taken care of, they were still sallow and emaciated. The old man began to distribute the life spirit fruits. Ziqian returned to his room and took out the card tower realm. With a thought, the card tower realm lit up with a ray of light. Immediately after, the light bloomed and enveloped the front. More than 100 life spirit fruits disappeared. Putting away the life spirit fruits, Ziqian left the room and walked out of Kata village. Shanya chased after hearing the news but was stopped by Ziqian. This time, Ziqian planned to go out alone to hunt. Shanya was a little worried and said that she wanted to go with him. Once again, she was rejected by Ziqian. After bidding farewell to Shanya, Ziqian rushed towards the forest in the distance. He was very fast and had no intention of hiding his tracks along the way. Just as he entered the forest, Zichun quickly found a soul-eater beast. He did not know if it was because of the commotion, the soul-binding chain in his left hand, and the soul-shocking light in his right. In an instant, with the surge of soul power, the soul-eater beast fell to the ground, motionless. Zichun went forward and used the card tower realm to keep the soul-eater beast. Estimating the size of the card tower realm, he could still fit 6 more soul-eater beasts. Hence, Zichun continued to move forward. 15 minutes later, Zichun found another soul-eater beast. He won easily. 4 hours later, Zichun filled up the card tower realm. A total of 7 soul-eater beasts were placed in it. In this forest, there were still many soul-eater beasts. Throwing a life spirit fruit into his mouth, Zichun began to recover the soul power that he had used up. If Kata village continued to develop, it would become more and more powerful. Everything was developing in a good direction. However, Zichun was thinking about the godly soul heaven grind. If Kata village had the godly soul heaven grind, he would not have to go out to hunt for soul-eater beasts. He could rely on the godly soul heaven grind to ensure that it would never decline. However, through the spirit mastery technique, Zichun knew that in an area, there was only one godly soul heaven grind. If Zichun wanted to get the godly soul heaven grind, he would need to become the strongest person in the area. At the moment, the strongest person in the area was Noah. Zichun could only get it if he defeated Noah. Once he thought of Noah, Zichun became alert. Noah was indeed very strong. He was no match for him. At the very least, he could not challenge him for the time being. Shaking his head, Zichun dismissed the thought. The last time he saw Noah, he did not know the soul power level of this world. At the moment, he could only make himself stronger until he had the power to challenge Noah. After his soul power recovered, Zichun quietly returned to Kata village without alerting anyone. Chapter 3660. The unhappiness in Shanya's heart disappeared completely when she woke up the next day, because she felt that she had become stronger again. Moreover, after several sudden changes, she knew that this change had a lot to do with the leader, Zichun. Vern and Clark advanced to the third realm. There were a few strong men in the village who successfully awakened their soul power and reached the first realm. It was worth mentioning that Liangbao also awakened his soul power. According to Shanya, he was only 8 years old. It was really amazing that he could awaken his soul power at this age. Therefore, Liangbao began to comprehend the soul-binding chain. Once he succeeded, he would be a qualified soul hunter. On this day, the old village chief volunteered to personally lead a team to exchange for the life spirit fruit. After several baptisms, not only did he become younger, but the soul power in his body that had been exhausted was also slowly recovering. Just last night, he successfully reached the first realm and was qualified to become a soul hunter again. Of course, he was excited. However, this request was directly rejected by Zichun. Zichun ordered, Vern, you continue to exchange for the life spirit fruit. Shanya will lead the team into the forest to hunt. Vern was already at the third realm and had mastered the soul-shocking light. His combat power was stronger than Shanya when Zichun first saw her. It was not a problem for him to lead the team. Zichun's prestige in Kata village was getting higher and higher. On the same day, Kata village divided into 2 groups for the first time. After Zichun arranged everything, he returned to his room. Shanya had also successfully advanced to the 4-star level. It was not a problem for her to deal with the soul-devouring beast. Therefore, with her leading the team, Zichun was not worried. Now, he needed to find some offensive soul skills for Kata village. Only by mastering more powerful soul skills could he have more powerful combat power. And those soul skills were in the soul control skill that Kata passed on to him. During this period, in addition to improving his soul power, Zichun also comprehended the various soul skills in the soul control skill. The Rhinoceros Soul Finger was an offensive soul technique that Zichun planned to pass on to Shanya. Its power was stronger than the soul-shocking light, and it was also faster. Other than the Rhinoceros Soul Finger, Zichun also mastered a few other powerful spirit techniques, but these spirit techniques were more complicated, and it would be difficult for them to spread quickly in Kata village. That day, Shanya's team returned with 8 soul-devouring beasts. It could be said that the harvest was not small. Vern had also completed the exchange mission very well. At present, even without Zichin, Kata village could already develop smoothly, and it was a positive development. The future would only get better and better. That night, Zichin taught Shanya the rhinoceros soul finger and told her to practice it well. Early the next morning, Shanya led the team and set off again. Vern continued to bring people to the Noah tribe to exchange for life soul fruits. However, this situation only lasted for 5 days. On the 6th day, Vern came back to inform them that the Noah tribe had increased the reward by 10%. It was getting worse. In this way, the reward was as high as 30%. Zichun had seen the God Soul Heaven grind. The more times it was used, the more benefits it would bring to the Noah tribe. The so-called loss naturally did not exist. It seems that the Noah tribe feels threatened. In just 1 month, Kata village had undergone earth-shaking changes. Obviously, the Noah tribe already knew about this change, so he felt uneasy. As an expert who had mastered the God Soul Heaven grind, he knew no less than Zichun. Vern looked at Zichun and asked for help. "Chief, what should we do now?" "What else can we do? Give it to them." At present, Zichun did not have a good solution, unless he could get the God Soul Heaven grind, but it was obviously impossible. There could only be one God Soul Heaven grind in an area. The next evening, after Vern came back, he told Zichun again that the reward had increased by 10%. Zichun looked at Vern's pale face and said, "In addition to increasing the reward by 10%, what else did the people of the Noah tribe say?" Vern looked into Zichun's eyes as if he was looking at a god. "In addition to increasing the reward, they also invited me to join the Noah tribe and said that I would be treated very well." When he said this, Vern's expression was very calm. If the people of the Noah tribe had invited him before, he would have gone crazy with excitement. However, now that he was strong enough to protect himself, he was much calmer about the Noah tribe's invitation. In addition to the invitation, they also tried to inquire about what happened in our village recently. Zichun nodded, patted Vern's shoulder and said, "In the future, when you go to the Noah tribe to exchange for the life soul fruit, you must be careful." Vern nodded, but he did not care too much. It seemed that no one dared to have any ideas about him at present. Zichun said again, "If something really happens, listen to me. Take your people and run. It's not a big deal to lose the fruit. As long as you're still alive, you can have anything." Zichun said so solemnly. Vern nodded blankly and remembered it in his heart. The next day, the Noah tribe increased the reward by another 10%, which was a total of 50%. Every time they exchanged for 8 soul-eating beasts, it meant that they could only get back 4. Regarding this, everyone in Kata village was angry. Even the original village chief, Shan Er, was angry and wanted to reason with the Noah tribe. This was simply too overbearing. However, he was stopped by Zichun. At the same time, Zichun told Vern that they could exchange for half of the harvest. Although everyone was angry, they were also helpless. Only the Noah tribe could exchange for the soul-eating beasts. If they did not go to the Noah tribe, where else could they go? The news that the Kata village only gave half of the harvest spread in a short time. For a time, all the villages were a little worried. Therefore, the number of soul-eating beasts they brought back each time was significantly reduced. Or, they were divided into several batches and exchanged at different times. This situation lasted for another week. During this week, Zichun did not go out. Instead, he worked hard to break through to the 5th realm of soul power. If he wanted to survive this crisis, he had to become stronger. Moreover, he knew that the Noah tribe increased the reward time and time again, not because of the village, but because of him. He felt a threat from himself. Zichun also knew this. This was also the reason why he did not go to the Noah tribe after he understood the rules of this world. Now, in order to survive this crisis, he could only let the Kata village accumulate some life soul fruits first until he became stronger. This was a good idea. Zichun did not hesitate to let the Kata village be unreasonably oppressed again and again. However, this situation only lasted for another 3 days. Just when Zichun was only 1 step away from the 5th realm, Vern and his people returned in embarrassment. Their soul-eating beasts were robbed for the first time. Chapter 3661. Zichun heard the news and walked out of the room. He saw Vern being carried back by the crowd. Vern's aura was very weak, as if he had been seriously injured. Zichun frowned slightly and asked solemnly, "What's going on?" He had once told Vern that if someone wanted the soul-devouring beast, he should just give up. It was better to be alive than anything else. The people who carried Vern back all lowered their heads, not daring to look at Zichun. They looked very guilty. Vern opened his mouth, but his injuries were so serious that he could not speak. Zichun looked at one of them and asked, "What's going on? Why didn't you escape immediately after discovering that something was wrong?" Everyone was stunned. They thought that the leader was blaming them for losing the goods. Who would have thought that he was blaming them for not escaping in time? At that time, only one person approached us. Brother Vern went to stop him, but he knocked Brother Vern down with just one palm. The soul hunter who was only at the first realm said with shame, before he fell, "Brother Vern told us to run." Vern was already at the third realm, but the other party defeated him with just one palm. Obviously, they came prepared. Zichun asked, "Did you recognize who that person was?" The soul hunter shook his head, indicating that he did not know. At this moment, Vern said weakly, "I don't know the person who attacked, but there were people from Arte Village." Arte Village? Zichun had never heard of this village. It's a very large village, not far from the Noah tribe. "I only heard their conversation when they left," Vern said again. Zichun nodded slightly. He understood that the so-called conversation was actually for Vern to hear. The other party's meaning was obvious. They were taking the initiative to declare war. If Zichun did not take action this time and chose to admit defeat, there would soon be a second, third, or even countless times. "Arte Village? Since you want to start this war through this place, I'll fulfill your wish." Zichun glanced at Vern and comforted him. "Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Take care of yourself." Vern looked very ashamed. Zichun bent down and patted him on the shoulder. Immediately, someone carried Vern back. Zichun looked at one of the soul hunters and said, "Tell Shanya to head to Arte Village immediately. All the other soul hunters will follow me." As Zichun spoke, he walked out of the village. After walking halfway, he suddenly stopped and said, "Call Liang Bao too." Liang Bao? The soul hunters at the back were stunned when they heard this. They were puzzled. Clearly, they were going to fight this time. Liang Bao was obviously still young, only 8 years old. Some things have to be faced eventually. Since you live in such a place, you should understand the cruelty here. With that, Zichun strode out of the village. The other soul hunters followed suit. Naturally, someone led the way for Zichun. After several soul light baptisms and the effects of the life soul fruit, there were now more than 20 soul hunters in this small kata village. Among them, the strongest were Shanya and the other two. The others were all first realm soul hunters, and their combat power was not too strong. Compared to Kata village, Arte village was a famous big village. Its fame was even far greater than Iza village and Girton village. If it were any other time, Kata village would not dare to challenge Arte village even if they had 10 guts. But it was different this time because they had Chief Zichun in their village. In less than 2 months, Chief Zichun had completely changed Kata village. They had absolute confidence in him. In another direction, after Shanya heard the news, she immediately abandoned the prey that she had locked on and ran in the direction of Arte with Clark and the others. There were more than 30 soul hunters heading towards Arte. This was the result of Zichun's less than 2 months. Of course, the main reason was the gift he received from Kata village when he broke through the realm. While moving forward, Zichun had to take care of the soul hunters behind him, so his speed was relatively slow. On the other hand, Shanya was running as fast as she could. Those who could follow her naturally had combat power, so their speed was not slow. Worried that Zichun would be at a disadvantage, Shanya clearly told him along the way not to be stingy with the life soul fruit. If he used too much, he could eat it directly. When they were less than 5 miles away from Arte village, Shanya and the others finally caught up. The two sides met, and it was a magnificent sight. However, less than half of them could really fight. "Sister Shanya." In the crowd, Liang Bao saw Shanya and shouted excitedly, "Why are you here?" Shanya rushed forward. When she saw Liang Bao, She was very surprised and her eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Liang Bao was only 8 years old. Obviously, it was not the time for him to participate in this kind of thing. Zichen said, "It's okay. You have to see the world." Liang Bao nodded in agreement. Unlike the others who were nervous, Liang Bao was very excited. The old village chief, who was now much younger, came in front of Zichen and asked, "What do you plan to do next?" Zichen said, "Follow the rules here." Shan Er thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid this matter is not that simple. First, the Noah tribe kept embezzling, even going as high as an unreasonable half. Now, the prey was snatched away. No matter how one looked at it, there was a hint of a conspiracy." Zichen smiled and said, "Who cares if it's simple or not? We'll talk about it after the fight. If the prey is snatched away and we can't beat them, what conspiracy is there to talk about?" Shan Er nodded. Zichen was the leader now, so naturally, Zichen had the final say. They arrived at Arte village. It was a very big village, at least 5 times the size of Kada village. There were people coming and going at the entrance of the village. When Zichen and the others arrived, several people immediately ran out. The leader was a big man with a long beard. He shouted at Zichen from afar, "This is Arte village. Outsiders are not allowed to come close." Zichen, of course, ignored him and continued to walk forward. The big man with the long beard raised his eyebrows and said coldly, "If you dare to come closer, we will treat it as a provocation and kill without mercy." It's him. He's one of the people who snatched our soul-devouring beast. At this moment, a soul hunter behind Zichen shouted. The corners of Zichen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. This scheme was too low-level. However, he was not here to expose the other party, so he did not say anything. When he was 10 feet away from the other party, Zichen made his move. Soul-binding chain. A black rope flew forward like a bolt of black lightning. Like a spirit snake, the other party was instantly tied up tightly. The next moment, there was a loud tremor. The ground shook and dust flew. The big man with the long beard fell far away. Chapter 3662. There was a loud bang. After the bearded man landed, he lost consciousness and fainted. Shanya and the others were stunned. They thought that Zichen would reason with the other party and only start a fight if they did not agree. They did not expect him to start a fight without a word. "You're courting death. Guards, there's an intruder in Arte." The few soul hunters following the bearded man immediately shouted when they saw this scene. In front of Zichen, the black light flashed again and several soul-binding chains flew out. Zichen, who was infinitely close to level 5, was bullying these level 1 soul hunters like an adult bullying a child. Bang, 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 bang. In an instant, everyone was sent flying and fainted after falling to the ground. Zichen strode toward Arte village with Shanya and the others following behind him. Liang Bao, who was only 8 years old, was even more excited. He followed beside Shanya and stared straight ahead. There were cries of alarm as the soul hunters in Arte village rushed over. Are they going to fight? Liang Bao clenched his small fists and his body began to tremble. Unexpectedly, Chief Zichen showed his power at this moment. A dozen soul-binding chains flew out and wrapped around the soul hunters in front of him. Liang Bao's eyes widened in disbelief. As for the leader's unique soul-binding chains, he had heard of them before, and he yearned for them very much. Because right now, he was barely able to use one. However, he had only heard of it and had never seen it with his own eyes. Now, he saw it with his own eyes. A dozen soul-binding chains were as fast as lightning and wrapped around the soul hunters. The next moment, the soul-binding chains were pulled taut and the soul hunters' bodies were sent flying. Bang, bang. Their bodies flew up and down as if they were juggling, constantly crashing into the ground. The ground rumbled and dust flew everywhere. In an instant, these people lost consciousness. Many people ran over after hearing the commotion, but they were all ordinary villagers. When they saw the soul hunters fall to the ground one by one, they all retreated in horror. This was what Liang Bao saw. Chief Zichen was advancing alone, and everyone in Arte village was retreating in fear. From time to time, soul hunters would run out of the crowd, but they would be defeated by Zichen in an instant and temporarily lose consciousness. By the time he reached the center of the village, dozens of people had already fainted. Most of them were at the first level. There were also some at the second level, but there were not many of them. As for those in the third realm, there was not a single one. "Stop! What are you doing?" A loud shout suddenly sounded, and a middle-aged man quickly rushed in this direction. The panicked crowd parted, and the middle-aged man came to the scene. He looked at the soul hunters who were lying on the ground and asked, "Who are you?" This was a third-realm cultivator, equivalent to Vern and Clark. Zichun looked at him and said, "You're Arte?" The other party snorted coldly and said angrily, "If you want to see our leader, you should come obediently." Zichun said indifferently, "Looks like you're not the leader anymore." His expression gradually turned cold. "Since you're not the leader, what right do you have to stand in front of me?" As soon as he finished speaking, Zichun tapped his foot and rushed toward the middle-aged man in front of him. "Arrogant!" The middle-aged man shouted angrily. As one of the few powerhouses in Arte Village, he was naturally not afraid of the other party and also moved forward. Soul power swirled around his body, and between his palms, there was a fierce fluctuation. The two of them met in an instant. Soul light shone, and powerful soul power fluctuations spread out in all directions. The villagers of Arte Village all looked forward, and their expressions became very nervous. The two sides separated immediately upon contact. Zichun stood behind the middle-aged man. The two of them stood with their backs facing each other, and their bodies were motionless as if they were fixed. Everyone became even more nervous, and their eyes were fixed on the front without blinking. Zichun moved and continued to walk forward. The middle-aged man who was blocking the way also swayed at this moment, but he did not take a step and directly fell down, losing consciousness. He defeated a third-realm soul hunter with one move. There was an uproar in front of them, and all the villagers of Arte retreated backward, their eyes full of fear. In front of the scattered crowd stood two people. Zichun glanced at the two of them and said, "It seems that you two are not from Arte." The two of them, who were only third-realm soul hunters, shouted angrily and rushed forward. Buzz! Besides Zichun, more than a dozen soul-binding chains flew out like lightning and instantly wrapped around the two of them. Their bodies were fixed in midair. In the next moment, Zichun tapped his foot and soared into the air. There was a black light flowing in his palms. It was the soul-shocking light, and it was with both hands. His left and right palms directly imprinted on the two people's foreheads, and with the surging soul ripple, the two people's vision turned black, and they instantly lost consciousness. Zichun's figure floated to the ground, and the dozen black soul-binding chains disappeared. The two unconscious third-realm soul hunters fell beside him. The three powerhouses who surrendered under Arte were defeated just like that. There was silence all around, and all the villagers looked at Zichun in disbelief. Shanya and the others followed behind, and they were also shocked by Zichun's powerful combat strength. Walking out of the slightly rising smoke and dust, Zichun saw a dignified man in a linen robe. Unlike the previous three people, this man was a fourth-realm soul hunter. "You are Arte?" Zichun looked at him and said indifferently. The man nodded. "You are the one who hurt my people?" Zichun asked again. The dignified man shook his head and said, "I don't know what you are talking about." Zichun turned back to look at the crowd. In the crowd, a soul hunter who carried Vern back said, "Leader, the one who hurt Captain Vern is not him." Zichun looked back at Arte, and there was a touch of coldness in his eyes. "It seems that you have the wrong person. Now we should end the matter of you breaking into our village and causing trouble, right? It seems that you are just a chess piece. Since you are not the one who planned for the future, how are you qualified to stand opposite me?" Zichun stretched out his finger and pointed forward. Rhinoceros soul finger. A ray of soul power, like sword energy, went straight forward. This was a technique from the soul mastery technique, and it was also the first time Zichun used it after he mastered it. The soul light shone, and the light was so strong that it was a little dazzling. Arte's eyes narrowed slightly, and he was alert in his heart. Soul power lingered around his body, quickly forming a small light shield in front of him. The finger light approached, illuminating the surroundings. Poof! At the moment of contact between the two sides, The light shield was penetrated and shattered. The finger light did not disperse and pierced into Arte's chest. It pierced through. Blood spurted out. Chapter 36:63. That strong sense of danger made Brad extremely uncomfortable. He looked ahead and saw Zichun standing up again. Seeing that his opponent was unscathed, he shouted in shock, "You're fine after taking such a powerful attack?" The previous attack was the combined power of all of Zichun's previous attacks. Yate didn't expect that Zichun would be able to block it. Zichun said calmly, "It's just a defensive soul technique. It's no big deal." Even so, the previous attack still caused Zichun's soul to suffer a lot of damage. It was just that he didn't show it. At this moment, a violent aura surged around Zichun's body. His hair moved without wind. He said coldly, "I have a move too. Let's see if you can block it." At the back, Shanya and the others were nervous. When they saw that Zichun was fine, they cheered loudly. Boom! Zichun's already strong aura became even more violent at this moment. Countless amounts of soul power exploded from his body. It was like a tornado that raged into the distance. In Brad's senses, the dangerous aura became even more intense. He couldn't believe that this aura was released by a level 4 cultivator. The black robe on his body began to dance, flapping loudly. His eyes turned cold. He suddenly tapped his foot. A huge tremor sounded. Smoke and dust flew up. Zichun's figure disappeared from his original spot. Like a raging storm, he whistled forward. A strong pressure came head-on. Brad's expression changed. There was a rare look of fear in his eyes. He had the strength of a level 5 cultivator. Facing Zichun's attack, he took the initiative to put up a defense. It was the same defensive light as before, which immediately enveloped his body. Separated by a light shield, he felt a little more at ease. At this moment, Zichun closed in and slammed his palm forward. Soul manipulation technique. Countless rays of black light circled around Zichun's palm, releasing a tyrannical aura. The palm print landed on the defensive barrier with a loud bang. Brad, who was extremely nervous, looked at the light shield that was still intact, and the tension on his face disappeared in an instant, replaced by disdain and ridicule. "Boy, it seems that I have overestimated you. You want to break my defense with this palm? I think you are dreaming." Zichun looked at Brad, who was hiding in the light barrier, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Is that so? It seems that you are very confident in the defense of this tortoise shell?" His eyes turned cold again, followed by a cold shout. Soul Shake. Soul Control Skill. Soul Shock. This was a new type of soul technique, the soul control technique passed down by Kata. It was similar to the soul-shocking light, but its power was 10 times stronger. After Zichun fully activated it, a strange vibration power passed through the soul light barrier and formed a vibration frequency that entered Brad's body. In an instant, the power in his body became chaotic. His soul power was out of control, and the light shield in front of him directly collapsed. This time, it didn't turn into an attack, but directly collapsed. With the defense broken, Brad looked at Zichun in front of him with eyes full of disbelief. "Pa." Close at hand, Zichun's palm landed on Brad's chest, and the strange vibration power erupted again. Brad felt that his vision was pitch black, and the whole world was spinning. His body flew out, and a line of blood streaked across the air. After landing, Brad still felt that the world was spinning, and his soul was rapidly weakening. The surroundings were completely silent, so quiet that it was almost dead. A powerhouse from the Noah tribe was defeated just like that? Yate, who staggered to his feet, found it hard to accept this result. The rest of the villagers were also stunned. The soul hunters from Yate didn't make the next move. This result was too unbelievable. With his soul severely damaged, Brad had lost the ability to fight again. Zichun's gaze swept across the surroundings, and he said coldly, "I can give you a chance to live. Immediately hand over all your life soul fruits and soul-devouring beasts. Otherwise, all the soul hunters in your village will die here today." Zichun's voice wasn't loud, but the content contained in his words carried a sharp threat. Once this village lost its soul hunters, it would quickly walk towards death. "You're forcing us into a dead end," Yates said with resentment. The other villagers looked at Zichun as if they were looking at a demon. Zichun looked at Yate and said, "This is also thanks to you. Why didn't you provoke anyone for no reason? Why did you have to provoke our Kada? Why? Do you think it's so easy to take away our things?" Zichun looked back at the crowd and said indifferently, "Since you dared to snatch our Kada's things, then you should be mentally prepared to face Kada's wrath. My patience is limited. If you don't agree to my proposal, then I'll leave all the life-soul fruits and soul-devouring beasts to you. I'll even leave the soul-devouring beasts that belong to us to you." The villagers were in disbelief, as if they were hallucinating. How could he be so nice as to leave everything behind? At this moment, Zichun continued, "However, I'll take away the lives of all the soul splitters." As soon as these words came out, the crowd was in an uproar. He was indeed a demon. He wanted to completely annihilate Yate village. Zichun defeated all the soul hunters in Yate by himself. He even defeated the Noah tribe's powerhouses. No one dared to resist, so everyone made their choice. Just as the villagers went home to get the life soul fruits to redeem the lives of the soul hunters, Zichun walked into Yate's residence. It was obvious that the majority of the village's resources were in this place. Yate's face was filled with grief and indignation, but he didn't dare to say anything. As for the mastermind behind all this, Kabir, he had already fainted. He couldn't be counted on. 15 minutes later, Zichun walked out of Yate's room and met up with Shanya and the others. They had found the soul-devouring beasts that were stolen from them, and they even obtained a dozen extra soul-devouring beasts. At the same time, each of them took a lot of life-soul fruits. It could be said that they had plundered Yate village this time, and their harvest was huge. This was the main reason why Zichun had called them here. It wasn't to fight, but to take away all the loot. "Let's go." Zichun glanced at the crowd, and the group began to turn back. On the way back, everyone was very excited. Chief Zichun had defeated Yate village by himself, so Kada's future was naturally glorious. Compared to the excited crowd, Zichun wasn't in high spirits at all. This was because Noah didn't come this time, which was somewhat unexpected. What awaited Kata next would be darkness. Just as Zichun left with his people, someone was silently watching this scene from afar. Chapter 36-64. Are we letting them go just like that? A middle-aged man stood beside Noah and asked as he watched Zichun's group leave. Noah didn't answer the question and chose to remain silent. Only after Zichun's figure had completely disappeared did Noah open his mouth and say, "Go inside and ask about the situation. Find out what exactly happened." Behind him, a person quickly left and ran towards Arte village. Noah didn't go over but waited in the same place. His position was hidden and no one noticed his presence. After a while, the person returned and told him what happened in Arte. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but frown. "So you're saying that he defeated everyone in Atri by himself?" "Yes." The person nodded. Captain Brad was also defeated by him. It's said that he only used one move when he got serious. He really does have some tricks up his sleeve, but that's what makes it interesting. Wouldn't it be too boring if you were defeated just like that? A smile appeared on Noah's face, but it was an extremely cold smile. Immediately spread the news that Kata's village was mobilized and robbed Arte. "Yes." The person turned and left. "Zichun, right? I'll play with you next." Asterisk 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 asterisk. On the way back, everyone was very excited and excited. They talked and laughed along the way, especially Liang Bao. It was his first time witnessing such a battle. His blood was boiling. He glanced at Zichun from time to time, his eyes filled with admiration. Zichun, on the other hand, was silent and didn't say a word. Although there was a reason for this incident, and he was on the side of reason, Noah obviously didn't think so. This incident was a trap that he dug, and Zichun had to jump into it. Shan Er came to Zichun's side and said, "What should we do next?" As a former leader, he certainly knew that this matter wasn't so simple. Defeating the people of Arte village wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. "Let's take it one step at a time," said Zichun. The news of Kata attacking Yate spread in a short period of time, causing an uproar. However, at the beginning, almost no one dared to believe that this was true. In this region, Kata's reputation was not small. However, it was not a good reputation. Almost everyone knew that it was only a matter of time before that stubborn village was destroyed. Yet was very famous because the village was strong enough and had many soul hunters. Many people would believe that Yate had snatched Kata, but no one would believe that Kata had snatched Yate. However, as the news spread more and more, and as the Yates leader made a statement, those who didn't believe it had no choice but to believe it. During this period of time, the topic that everyone couldn't avoid was the new leader of Kata, Zichen. It was this person who appeared out of nowhere and brought people to rob Yate. There were many different versions of the story, but none of them were about Yate attacking Kata first. 2 days had passed, but the people of Kata village were still excited. During these 2 days, Zichun didn't arrange for anyone to go to the Noah tribe to exchange for the fated soul fruit. Clearly, he didn't want to give the Noah tribe a chance to attack. During these 2 days, he had been cultivating in his room, trying to break through as soon as possible. He believed that the Noah tribe's next move would be coming soon. At this moment, a panicked voice came from outside the door. "Chief, it's not good. There are many people outside. Even the Noah tribe is here." Zichen opened his eyes, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. "It's only been 2 days. You can't sit still anymore? Let's go and take a look." He got up and walked outside. At this moment, many people had gathered at the entrance of the village. They were all soul hunters. Some of them came from the nearby villages after hearing the news and came to join in the fun. Some of them came from the Noah tribe. Someone from Yate village had also come. It was a second realm soul hunter. The leader was an old man. He stood with his hands behind his back, and there was a hint of arrogance on his face. "Nelson, why are you here?" When Sean Eyre heard the news, he walked out of the village and recognized the old man. The old man glanced at Sean Eyre and said indifferently, "You old fart. You've become much younger, just like the rumors say." Sean Eyre's eyes showed some anger. He said, "You came to Kata just to say this?" The old man said disdainfully, "What right do you have to ask me what I'm doing here? Tell your new chief to get out here. I have something to say to him." How dare he be so disrespectful to their chief? All the villagers from Kata were angry. Sean Eyre said angrily, "How dare you be disrespectful to our chief, Nelson? Do you want to die?" As soon as he said this, there was an uproar. Obviously, no one would have thought that Sean Eyre would actually say such a thing. Nelson was not only from the Noah tribe, but he was also the former chief of the Noah tribe. Of course, at that time, the tribe was still called Nelson. "Want to die?" Nelson glanced at Sean Eyre and said mockingly, "Are you serious? Why don't you come and try?" Sean Eyre's face was very ugly. Naturally, he would not take the initiative to attack, and what he said before was just an angry remark. "It seems that you're still as cowardly as before." Nelson's eyes suddenly became cold. "I don't care if you're a coward, but how dare you call my name? Come on, break his mouth for me." As soon as his voice fell, a man came out from behind Nelson and walked toward Sean Eyre. Shania, who had already arrived at the scene, immediately walked forward. She would never let anyone hurt Grandpa Sean Eyre. The others also stared at Nelson angrily. He was simply too overbearing. Not only did he come here, but now he even wanted to beat people. "If you want to die, just do it. I'll send your bodies back." An ice-cold voice suddenly came from behind. The crowd parted and Zichun came out. "Chief." Seeing Zichun appear, the villagers of Kata were very excited. As for the man who was about to attack, he stopped at this time and did not take the next step. Nelson waved his hand, and he stepped back. Zichun's gaze swept across the front. There were many people who were watching the show, but it was just what he wanted. "You're the new chief of Kata, Zichun?" Nelson looked at Zichun and mocked. "You're quite arrogant, aren't you?" Zichun looked at Nelson and said indifferently, "Who do you think you are? How dare you call me by my name? You're courting death." Nelson was infuriated. Zichun, who did not want to argue with Nelson, said impatiently, "If you have something to say, just say it. If you're here to fight, I hope you've brought enough weapons." Hearing Zichun's words, Iza and Gatton in the crowd's expressions changed. The two of them thought of some unpleasant things. "You brought people to rob Arte's resources. I'm here to deliver the order of Noah's chief, ordering you to return the resources immediately and give Arte 3 times the compensation. Then you have to personally bring people to Arte's village and kneel down to apologize. Otherwise, Kata will be deprived of the right to exchange for the life spirit fruit. Nelson suppressed his anger and explained the purpose of his visit. Chapter 3665. In this world, the fat spirit fruit was the foundation of everything. Without the fat spirit fruit, it was impossible to survive. In this area, only the Noah tribe could exchange for the life soul fruit. If Kata's right to exchange was revoked, everyone would die because of it. While the crowd was in an uproar, they finally confirmed that Kata had really robbed Yate. However, this punishment was heavy enough. Not only would they have to pay 3 times the compensation, but they would also have to kowtow and apologize. This was a great humiliation for Kata. After saying his intention, Nelson looked proud again. He looked at Zichun and said disdainfully, "You don't need me to teach you how to choose, do you?" Today, Yate also came. Why don't you kowtow and apologize to him first? Why? Shanya said angrily. Yate robbed us first. According to the rules, we have the right to take back what belongs to us. The crowd was in an uproar again. Those who still had doubts in their hearts finally understood the reason at this moment. Kata and Yate were very far apart. One was a famous big village, while the other was a small place where it was difficult to survive. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have crossed paths. However, Kata had robbed Yate. It turned out that it was all because Yate had attacked Kata first. If it was in the past, no one would believe Shanya because Kata couldn't even protect himself and had very little prey. Yate didn't care about them at all. However, since the change of leader, everything changed. Kata's daily harvest made many people envious. During this time, many forces were tempted, but they were afraid and didn't make a move. Who would have thought that Yate would make a move, and the tragedy was that he was robbed instead? Nonsense. You're just a broken Kata. What resources do you have that we want? It's obvious that you were greedy and attacked us. The second realm soul hunter from Yate scolded loudly. The crowd was silent. It was clear who was right and who was wrong. What they cared about was Noah's attitude. You're slandering us. Vern was injured by your people. He hasn't recovered yet, Shanya said angrily. Before she could finish, Zichun waved his hand and interrupted her. Zichun looked at Nelson and said, "Are you sure this is Noah's message?" Nelson glanced at Zichun. "What do you think?" Zichun smiled faintly and said, "It's such an obvious right and wrong. Yet he actually asked you to pass on the message. I want to know whether Noah is an unreasonable idiot, or is he deliberately targeting our Kata?" In the crowd, many people's expressions changed. In this area, they were probably the only ones who dared to call Noah by his name and call him an idiot. Impudent. How dare you disrespect our leader? Nelson shouted angrily, his eyebrows furrowed. Even an idiot can tell right from wrong, but he can't. If he's not an idiot, then what is? Zichun said sarcastically, "Help me pass a message to Noah. Tell him that if he wants to deal with me, Zichun, he can come at me. There's no need to do such despicable things behind my back." "Boy, don't you dare slander our leader," Nelson said angrily. "Slander? Does that idiot need my slander?" Zichun looked around. "Noah has been targeting our Kata for a long time. You've repeatedly deducted our reward for exchanging life soul fruits. Now, you're taking 8 life soul fruits a day, but you're only getting 4 life soul fruits. If this isn't intentional, then what is?" The crowd was silent. Many people knew about this. Many people even deliberately split the exchanging life soul fruits several times for fear of being deducted. Zichun continued, "Even so, we still admit it. Who asked you to be in charge of Heaven's grindstone? But what happened in the end? Noah, that idiot, still wasn't satisfied. Instead, he sent Yate's people to steal our soul devourers. Yate dared to touch our resources. Isn't he courting death?" Nelson wanted to say something to defend himself, but just as he opened his mouth, he was forcefully interrupted by Zichun. "I'm not telling you this today because I want you to help us, but because I want you to pass a message to that idiot. Tell him not to play any tricks. It's useless. I know very well what his true goal is. It's nothing more than taking away our right to exchange life's soul fruits and making us unable to rise again. Zichun said coldly, but so what if you've stopped our Kata's rise? There will still be many villages rising in the future. What Noah needs to do is to constantly become stronger, not use despicable means to suppress those rising villages. Nonsense. What a load of nonsense. Zichun, I really didn't expect you to be so good at distorting the truth. You were the one who stole Yate, and Noah's leader gave you a lot of tolerance because it wasn't easy for your kata. I didn't expect that not only did you not appreciate it, but you even framed our leader. Are you still human? Nelson said bitterly. That's right. You're distorting the truth. Our Yate never attacked you. The Second Realm's soul hunter said angrily, as if he had been greatly wronged. The other people around them were silent. Although they didn't say anything, their hearts were as clear as a mirror. Nelson obviously didn't want to give Zichun a chance to defend himself. He said impatiently, I've already passed the message. What's your choice? I suggest you apologize. It's not shameful to apologize when you've done something wrong. If you know you're wrong and can change, we'll respect you, even if you kneel down and apologize. Nelson looked at Zichun with a mocking expression. I still have things to do. Hurry up and tell me your choice. If you want to apologize, kneel down quickly. Looking at the smug Nelson, Zichun sneered, I was going to let you walk back, but since you can't wait to die, I'll let you go back one by one. As soon as he finished speaking, Zichun rushed forward. How dare you attack us? You're courting death. Seeing Zichun rush over, Nelson shouted angrily, Take him down. The battle broke out. The people around them who were just here to watch the show all retreated one by one, making their stance clear. Next, they watched Zichun's solo performance. Nelson's people, including himself, all fell at Zichun's feet in a very short period of time. There were screams all around. As far as the eye could see, none of the people brought by Nelson could stand up. They looked at Zichun with eyes full of fear. The other party's battle prowess was too terrifying. Zichun walked forward and came to Nelson's side. He reached out and took a small cloth bag from Nelson's chest. Inside it was the life soul fruit. Seeing Zichun's action, Iza and Gatton, who were in the crowd, couldn't help but twitch their lips. Chapter 3666. Just as Noah was deciding what to do, a person suddenly appeared in his room. It was very sudden, as if he had appeared out of thin air. It was a young man who looked extremely valiant. His eyes were bright and deep. If one looked at them for a long time, one would be lost in them. When he saw the young man who had suddenly appeared, Noah's face no longer had the shock and anger he had when he first saw him. He bowed respectfully to the young man. The young man nodded slightly as a response to Noah. Sir, do you have any orders for me today? Noah asked respectfully. As the strongest person in this area, Noah would never forget the scene when he first saw the young man. At that time, he thought that an assassin had come and was shocked by the young man's means. He was furious and attacked decisively. However, in just one move, he, the strongest person, fell to the ground and lost his power. He was at the mercy of the young man. At that time, boundless fear and despair emerged in his heart. Fortunately, the young man did not kill him. Instead, he was given a great opportunity. I have already helped you suppress his realm and temporarily stopped him from growing. You have to move faster. As long as you can disband Kata, I will definitely help you break through the realm, the young man said calmly. Noah's eyes were filled with joy. He patted his chest and said, Sir, don't worry. The next step of my plan is already in progress. As long as this plan succeeds, Kata will definitely be disbanded. The young man glanced at Noah and said, I don't have much time. You better move faster. After saying that, the young man's figure disappeared into thin air like a ghost. Although Noah had seen it more than once, he was still shocked by the young man's mysterious means. Zichun, just wait for your Kata to be destroyed. Noah's eyes flashed coldly as he began to issue new orders. In Kata village, Zichun walked out of his room. 7 days had passed. During these 7 days, he did not stop for a moment. He had been working hard to cultivate. However, he was unable to break through the realm. It was as if an unknown force was preventing him from doing so. He could not reach the fifth realm. Kata did not have any other sources of life soul fruits. In the future, Kata would be in a difficult situation. Zichen's mood was greatly affected. This was also the reason why he did not continue cultivating and left the room. Along the way, they saw some villagers. Zichen nodded at them. However, the villagers seemed to be very busy. They came and went in a hurry. She didn't know what they were busy with. At this moment, Zichen saw Liangbao running away. He didn't know where he was going. "Show off your treasures," Zichen shouted. Liangbao stopped when he heard the voice. When he saw Zichen, he was very surprised. "Leader, why are you here?" Liangbao jogged over. Zichen rubbed Liangbao's head and said, "I'm the leader. Where else can I be?" Liangbao hurriedly explained, "Leader, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, isn't leader cultivating? Why did you come out? Shouldn't I be asking you that? Why aren't you cultivating? Why are you running around?" Zichen asked. Liangbao quickly shook his head and said, "I'm not running around. I'm just..." At this point, Liangbao suddenly covered his mouth as if he had said something wrong. He looked around in a panic. When he didn't see anyone else, he sighed in relief. Since he was so sneaky, there was obviously something wrong. Zichen asked again, "What happened?" "Nothing, really." Liangbao shook his head again and again. He was very nervous. "Oh, I didn't expect you to be so bold. You even dared to lie to the leader?" Zichen looked at the nervous Liangbao and said, "Are you going to rebel?" Liangbao was shocked. He quickly waved his hand and said, "I didn't mean to lie to the leader. It's just that if I tell you, Sister Shanya will definitely beat me. Then you're not afraid that I'll beat you? Tell me, or your butt will explode." Zichen's threat seemed to be very effective. Liangbao said, "I can tell you, but you must not betray me." "Little brat, tell me, do you know what betrayal is?" Zichen was so angry that he laughed. "I'm going to the neighboring village. I'm already a soul hunter, so if I work for them, they will reward me." Zichen's smile froze. Seeing the leader's smile disappear, Liangbao was shocked. He quickly explained, "Don't misunderstand, leader. We don't mean to leave. We just want to do something for Kata. Sister Shanya said that we can't rely on the leader for everything. In this difficult time, we should do our part." Zichen gently patted Liangbao's head and said, "Go. I'll keep it a secret for you. Leader, you're not angry, right?" Liangbao carefully looked at Zichen's face. "You're all thinking for me, the leader. Why would I be angry? Go, but remember to practice. After all, strength is the foundation of everything." Looking at Zichen's calm expression, Liangbao finally felt relieved. He then ran away. He had said yesterday that he would go to the neighboring village to help, but he got up a little late. Zichen looked at Liangbao's back as he left, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. At this moment, there was a noise from the village entrance. Zichen heard the noise and walked forward. He saw Shanya and the others at the village entrance. With Shanya in the lead, a dozen or so soul hunters walked towards the entrance of the village, all of them looking dejected. Liangbao, who was originally in high spirits, also followed beside him. He lowered his head and said something to Shanya dejectedly. "What happened?" Zichen looked at these people and asked. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other. They didn't expect the leader to be here. No one answered. Liangbao said, "Since the leader already knows, let's not hide it anymore." Hearing this, everyone felt even more ashamed. Shanya said, "I don't know what happened to the people in the neighboring village. They suddenly don't need our help." Shanya didn't know the reason, but Zichen knew. He looked at the ashamed people and said, "You don't have to worry about the fat soul fruit. I will think of a way. Now is the best time for you to cultivate. Don't waste your time on other things." Shanya said, "But you've done enough for Kata. As a member of Kata, we want to do something for him too." The others nodded. Zichen smiled. "I know, but as the leader, I should stand up now. After this is over, it will be time for you to do something for Kata. I have a way to get the fat soul fruit. Don't worry." Seeing how confident the leader was, everyone nodded. Another 3 days passed. In these 3 days, no one went out to hunt. In addition, there was still no control over the distribution of the fat soul fruit. Therefore, The number of fat soul fruits accumulated by Kata had decreased significantly. Therefore, there were some rumors that were unfavorable to Zichun in private. Zichun knew that this was Noah's new attack. This time, he didn't stop it in time. Instead, he let the situation develop. If Kata wanted to win this round, he needed to be nervous. Chapter 36-67. In the room, Brother Gu glanced at the crowd. After sorting out his thoughts, he said, "In a place like ours, if we want to survive, we have to rely on the fat soul fruit. But now that the Noah tribe no longer trades with us, what awaits us is destruction." There were more than 10 people in the room. There were soul hunters and ordinary people. They nodded in unison, agreeing with Brother Ge's words. Brother Gu continued, "Chief said that he would think of a way, but in fact, he has no idea. He didn't go to the Noah tribe to apologize. He just stayed in his room all day to cultivate. It's said that he consumes over 100 fat soul fruits every day. I don't think he's sincere at all. He only wants to use up the last of fat soul fruits. When that happens, he, who doesn't belong to Kata, will naturally choose to leave. After all, he can survive wherever he goes. But we're different. If we leave Kata, we'll die." Brother Gu said agitatedly, "Most importantly, the cause of this incident was Zichun. He's the one who doesn't want to make peace. I think his real goal is to destroy Kata. So, while we're still alive, we have to think about our future. When danger comes, no one will care about us. We can only rely on ourselves." Brother Gu spoke passionately. The crowd below was also restless. One of them asked, "Then what should we do?" "Yeah, do you have any good ideas?" The others asked as well. The agitated Brother Gu immediately became depressed. He said, "I really don't have any good ideas now. I can only save up more fat soul fruits and try to live a little longer." Hearing these words, everyone looked at second Brother Gu with a strange gaze. The other party had a history of snatching the life soul fruit. Could it be that it would repeat itself this time? Seeing everyone's strange looks, Brother Gu guessed what they were thinking. He immediately said, "What are you thinking? I've made a mistake once, and I won't make a mistake a second time. Don't worry, I won't do anything like snatching again. I still have a bottom line." Everyone believed him. As long as Zichun was still in Kata, no one would dare to do anything like snatching. After the speech ended, the crowd dispersed. Brother Gu was elated as he realized that he had improved a little today. There was a speech like this every day. Those who might have been swayed by his speech had already planted the seed of leaving in their hearts. Brother Gu looked out of the window and sneered, "Everything is ready except for the east wind. As long as I can bring them out of here smoothly, I will be a big shot in the Noah tribe." Bastard! What a bastard! If I hadn't taken him in, he would have starved to death. Because second Brother Gu had given quite a number of speeches, the news had finally reached Sean Air. When the other party heard the news, he was furious. Shania, who was standing in front of him, didn't look good either. Kata was facing a crisis, but these natives didn't think about how to get through it. Instead, they thought about how to escape. If I had known this would happen, I would have let them die outside. Sean Air was furious. At this moment, he thought of a problem and asked, "The chief doesn't know about this, right?" Shania said, "I just came out of the chief's room. My intention was to test the chief to see if he knew about it. Who knew that the chief would take the initiative to tell me not to worry and to let them cause trouble?" In Sean Air's impression, Zichun wasn't a reckless person. Even though he seemed a little unreasonable when dealing with Yate, the facts proved that Zichun was right. If they hadn't snatched Yate's life spirit fruit, they wouldn't have been able to hold on. Since Chief Zichun already knew about it and didn't give any other instructions, Sean Air was relieved. He believed that if the chief said that he had a way to solve this problem, then he definitely had a way. Another 2 days passed. As the number of life spirit fruits in Kata's possession continued to decrease, the conflict slowly surfaced. In an instant, various discussions that should have appeared in private had also appeared in the open. Moreover, almost every day, there would be people arguing about the number of life spirit fruits distributed. Even so, Zichun still didn't appear. This made many people more and more disappointed. Just as Kata was getting more and more chaotic, the Noah tribe came again. This time, it was Nellison. His injuries had clearly healed. "People of Kata, I'm here to save you." He didn't dare to enter the village. Instead, he shouted loudly outside the village. Clearly, he was afraid of Zichun. His voice was very loud, and it immediately spread throughout the village. Brother Gu heard him and shouted, "There's movement outside the village. Everyone, follow me." Suddenly, all the villagers ran out of the village. Nelson stood outside the village. Other than him, there were more than 10 people. However, everyone ignored them. As long as Chief Zichun made a move, these people wouldn't be enough. Beside these people, there were large bamboo baskets covered with cloth. No one knew what was inside. The villagers looked at Nelson curiously. He looked at the increasing number of villagers with a kind smile on his face. He no longer had the arrogance from before. Inadvertently, he and Brother Gu looked at each other and made a brief eye contact. Shanair saw Nelson and the people and things behind him. His expression changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "Nelson, why are you here? Have you recovered from your injuries?" He directly pointed out the embarrassing incident last time, which was obviously a slap in the face. If it was any other time, Nelson would have been angry. However, he didn't this time. Instead, he laughed and said, "I just recovered, so I hurried over." Shanair had a bad feeling in his heart. Nelson must have some ulterior motive for lowering himself like this. Shanair vaguely guessed Nelson's intentions and said coldly, "You can leave. Kata doesn't welcome you." A cold light flashed in Nelson's eyes, but he quickly concealed it. He said, "Shanair, I know you used to be prejudiced against me, but this time you really misunderstood me. I know your situation, and this time I'm here to save you." Not giving Shanair a chance to anger him, Nelson looked at the villagers and said, "Everyone, since the last incident, I've personally felt the arrogance and cruelty of your Chief Zichun. I also know that you're suffering because of the pressure, so I've just recovered from my injuries. I'm here to give you hope." Nelson waved his hand, and the people behind him directly lifted the cloth covering the bamboo baskets, revealing the things inside. It was life spirit fruit, all of them, and there were thousands of them. Chapter 3669. Exclamations could be heard as everyone was shocked. Thousands of faded spirit fruits were placed there. They had never seen such a huge amount of them. At this moment, everyone was staring at the life spirit fruits. Nelson, who had a panoramic view of everyone's expression, smiled faintly. "What do you mean by this?" A voice came from the shocked crowd. It was Brother Gu. He spoke at the right time, and his shocked expression was on point. Nelson smiled. "Obviously, this is prepared for you. I'm here to save you." "All of them are for us?" Brother Gu asked excitedly. "That's right. But in order to save you from suffering, I've decided to invite all of you to join the Noah tribe." Nelson's words shocked the crowd even more than the life spirit fruit had been. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Noah tribe was the largest tribe in this area, and countless soul hunters dreamed of joining it. Who would have thought that it would open its door for Kata? "Are you telling the truth?" Brother Gu asked excitedly. "The powerful Noah tribe is really willing to let us join?" Nelson shook his head. "I'm not asking you to join us. I'm sincerely inviting you to join us." "Really?" Brother Gu was so excited that his body trembled. "But there are many ordinary people among us who have not awakened. They are not soul hunters." Nelson shook his head again. "It doesn't matter. I'm here to save you. Noah tribe welcomes you to join us." Brother Gu turned around and said excitedly to the crowd, "What are you waiting for? Do you want to miss such a good opportunity? That's Noah tribe. Once you join us, you will have nothing to worry about in the future." Everyone's expression changed. "Brother Gu, that's enough. If it weren't for the leader, you would have been dead." Shanair scolded Brother Gu. "He saved me, and I'm very grateful to him. Do I have to give my life to him?" Brother Gu pointed at the village and said, "And this time, Zichun asked for it. He caused Kata to be in danger. Why should we give up our lives to follow him?" When Nelson came, he did not deliberately hide his whereabouts, so he was discovered by many people. The people from the neighboring villages rushed over one by one. When Ija and the others arrived, they saw this scene. The large number of life spirit fruits shocked them. However, Ija's expression soon turned strange. Taking out so many faded soul fruits to attract them was naturally very effective. However, Ija knew Zichun very well. With so many faded soul fruits appearing, Zichun would definitely snatch them away. Without the life spirit fruit, how are you going to recruit people? Brother Ge looked straight into Shan Er's eyes and did not back down at all. If you want to die, I won't stop you, but please don't drag us down with you. He looked at the hesitant people and said, Everyone, we are not the ones at fault this time. There is no need for us to sacrifice our lives for the mistakes of others. This is a rare opportunity. I've decided to leave Kata and join the Noah tribe of my dreams. Nelson clapped his hands and said, Noah welcomes everyone to join us. I may not have made it clear before, but as long as you come to Noah tribe, we will be a family. As long as you work for Noah tribe wholeheartedly, I can't guarantee anything else, but I can guarantee that your harvest will be 3 times more than when you were in Kata. This condition could be said to be very generous, and many people were tempted. Brother Ge wanted to strike while the iron was hot and say a few words of encouragement. However, at this moment, a faint voice sounded from behind. So, you, who just recovered from your injuries, are here to recruit people? Hearing this voice, many villagers' faces changed. Shanya and Shan Er were delighted. The leader had finally appeared. The crowd parted and Zichun walked forward. Liang Bao followed behind Zichun. I'm not here to recruit people. I'm here to take them out of the sea of bitterness. Nelson looked at Zichun and said, Zichun, I admit that you are strong, but you are too arrogant. Kata became like this all because of you. So, I can't bear to see them die, so I can only bring the fat soul fruits here. As he spoke, Nelson pointed at the life spirit fruit behind him and boasted, Look, don't you think I'm very sincere? Iza, who was watching this scene from afar, shook his head. He thought to himself, Did you get beaten silly by Zichun last time? Are you showing off these fat soul fruits because you are worried that Zichun won't take them? You know, this lord even dared to scold Noah tribe. Taking these fat soul fruits would be a piece of cake for him. It turned out that Kata was going to be destroyed soon. Now, with so many fat soul fruits, they could last for a few more months. Iza looked to the side and saw Gatton. The two looked at each other and thought the same thing. This Nelson was an idiot. No wonder the position of chief was taken by Noah tribe. While the two looked at each other expectantly, Zichun just glanced at the fat soul fruits. He didn't look like he was going to take them. He nodded and said, There are quite a lot of fat soul fruits. It seems that you are sincere. Of course. An arrogant guy like you can't feed them. Of course, I have to be generous, Nelson said sarcastically. We are from Noah tribe, after all. In the eyes of Ija and Zichun, this kind of provocation was simply courting death. However, the two of them were taken aback once again. Zichun actually didn't get angry on the spot, and he didn't even retort. Zichun nodded and said, I see your sincerity. I will help you talk to them. Nelson was confused. He didn't understand. Zichun ignored him. He turned to the villagers and said, There is no point in saying more. If you're willing to believe me, then stay. We will get through this together. Don't worry. Since I agreed to be Kata's chief, I have never thought of leaving alone. I won't abandon you. Of course, if you don't believe me and think that there is no future here, then it is a good choice to join Noah tribe now. Zichun pointed at Gatton and said, Take him for example. He is the first to express his stance, so he will get the most benefits. Of course, it doesn't matter if it is later. As long as you choose to join Noah tribe, you will get benefits. If you are hesitant and want to wait a few days before expressing your stance, then I'm sorry to say that not only will you get less benefits, but you will also be despised. Gatton was shocked when Zichun pointed at him. He thought that he was going to make an example out of him. Who knew that he would say something like that? Zichun finally said, So, make your choice. If you're willing to stay, we will go back to the village and get through this together. If you want to leave, I wish you a good future. Chapter 3670. The thousands of faded spirit fruits that Nelson had brought could sustain Kata for a few months. Of course, Zichun understood this logic. However, He also knew that snatching these life soul fruits would push Kata and even him into the abyss. Why would Nelson, who had been beaten up, dare to provoke him again and even show off his fated spirit fruits? Zichun was not stupid. He guessed the reason immediately. At the same time, he also found out about another rule because of this, and it was that Noah didn't dare to take the initiative to attack him. Of course, if he took the initiative to provoke Noah, it would be a different story. For example, if he stole thousands of fated spirit fruits, it would give Noah a reason to start a fight. Zichun, who was in a good mood, walked out of the room and called everyone out. He looked at them and smiled. Not bad. There are more than I expected. Vern and Clark, the strongest in Catter, did not leave either. Zichun looked at them and said, although I can't promise you a good future, I can at least make sure you don't have to worry about food and clothing in the future. As long as I am in Kata, as long as I am the leader, there will be no shortage of fated spirit fruits. Then Zichun looked at Shan-Er and said, give out the fated spirit fruits as before. Don't skimp on the amount. Shan-Er nodded. Zichun looked at Shanya and the other two and said, you three, don't be stingy. Take advantage of the time when you don't have to hunt to improve your battle strength. Zichun said a few more words. After he left, he looked at Liang Bao and said, little genius, you have to work hard too. You are the hope of all of us. The little guy's face was flushed red. He nodded excitedly and answered with a heavy voice, following which, everyone returned to their own residences. After listening to Leader Zichun's words, everyone was completely relieved. Zichun returned to his room and continued to cultivate. Although the feeling of being suppressed by the inexplicable aura was still there, Zichun faintly felt that he was not far from breaking through. As long as he could break through, there would be a day when he could defeat Noah. When that day came, Kata would have the divine spirit heaven grind and rise completely. In Noah tribe, in Noah's room, a teenager was pointing at Noah's nose and cursing. His words were very unpleasant. As the strongest person in this area, Noah did not even dare to retort. He had really reached a state where he did not retaliate when hit or scolded. The young man's spittle flew everywhere, appearing to be extremely furious. Trash, you really are trash. You can't even deal with a mere Zichun. You think a piece of trash like you is qualified to reach the 8th level? Noah, who had been lowering his head and allowing himself to be beaten and scolded, suddenly raised his head and said, my plan was perfect, but that guy was too cunning and didn't fall for it. Otherwise, I would have killed him long ago. Looking at the angry youth, Noah hurriedly said, my men will be there tomorrow. And according to my intelligence, Kata's life soul fruit won't last much longer. It will be depleted in half a month at most. When that happens, they will have no choice but to join us. Once Kata is gone, it will naturally disband. The anger on the young man's face dissipated a little. He said indifferently, remember what you said? If Kata is still not destroyed in half a month, I will not let you go. Do you know how much I have to pay to suppress his realm? With a wave of his big sleeve, the young man's figure disappeared. After the young man left, anger appeared on Noah's face. Zichun, I will not let you go. After your Kata disbands, I will kill you. Night fell. Zichun's door opened silently. He left Kata village under the cover of the night. In the dark night, one could not even see their own fingers. The surroundings were gloomy, and there were occasional roars of beasts. In the nearby villages, almost no one dared to travel at night. Zichun arrived at Iza village and quietly snuck in. He came to the center of the village and stopped outside the largest courtyard. Iza, who was sleeping, suddenly woke up. As if he had a nightmare, his whole body was drenched in cold sweat. He took deep breaths and his breathing was rapid. But in the next moment, he held his breath and stared straight ahead. There was a figure standing 3 meters in front of him. At this time, you won't shout for help, right? Just as Iza's expression changed, a faint voice sounded. Zichun, Iza called out in a low voice. He recognized who it was and became more alert. Yes, it's me. Zichun walked to the side and pulled a stool to sit down. How long have you been here? Iza asked. In fact, he wanted to ask Zichun what he was doing here, but he changed his mind. Not long, but it's enough to kill you silently. Hearing Zichun's calm words, Iz's heart began to beat violently. Clearly, he felt as if he had just walked through the gates of hell. "What are you doing here?" he asked again. "I want to borrow something from you." "What?" "A soul-devouring beast in exchange for a life-soul fruit. If you agree, I will come to get it every day at this time." Ija's expression changed as he exclaimed, "You want one every day?" "Not want, but borrow." Zichun reiterated again, "If you want to exchange with me, I can also send you a soul-devouring beast, but I'm afraid you won't dare to accept it." Iza was very clear about Zichun's meaning. Now that the Noah tribe was targeting Zichun, if their Iza village suddenly brought many soul-devouring beasts to the Noah tribe, they would inevitably be targeted. Iza quickly calmed down. It turned out that Zichun had something to ask of him. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. "You are now being targeted by Noah. Why should I help you? What benefits will I get if I help you?" Zichun, who was sitting on the stool, smiled slightly. "I can't give you any benefits now, but I can promise you in the future. In the future, after I defeat Noah and get the God's soul heaven grind, not only will I double the compensation to you, but I will also waive all the rewards you need to exchange soul-devouring beasts in the future." "What did you say? You want to defeat Noah?" Isaiah jumped up from the bed and looked at Zichun in disbelief. "Are you scared silly by Noah's targeting? You're actually spouting nonsense?" "Whether it's nonsense or not, you can figure it out yourself." Zichun smiled faintly. "Think carefully about why Noah is targeting me, and you should have an answer." "Oh, this soul-devouring beast will be the deposit for our deal. As long as you have a way to deal with it, I can give you as many soul-devouring beasts as you want." As he spoke, a soul light flashed in front of Zichun, and a soul-devouring beast appeared out of thin air. Seeing this almost like a magic trick, Iz's eyes widened in shock again. He jumped down from the bed and carefully touched the soul-devouring beast. It was real. But how did such a huge, soul-devouring beast appear? "Do you have a way to deal with it?" Zichun asked. Isaiah shook his head and said, "The soul-devouring beasts we hunt every day are limited in number. If one suddenly appears, it will be hard to explain." "Then I'll keep it first. Consider this as me owing you a favor." As he spoke, a soul light flashed in front of Zichun, and the soul-devouring beast disappeared again. "I didn't promise you." Isaiah stood up and said, but his eyes kept staring behind Zichun. He suspected that there was something fishy going on there. "I believe you will definitely agree." "Why?" "Because you're not stupid." With that, Zichun disappeared into the shadows. Chapter 3671. After spending almost half the night, Zichun went to Iza village and Gaduin village respectively. After having a heart-to-heart talk with the two leaders, his mood improved a lot. Reducing the harvest of one soul-eating beast every day was not a big problem for the two. No one would notice, and they also gained Zichun's favor. Last time, Zichun didn't take Noah seriously in front of Nellerson, called him an idiot, and even beat everyone up. He did it on purpose for the two to see. It could be said that Zichun had already expected Noah's backup plan. As long as the two weren't idiots, they would definitely help him this time. As long as he could break through the suppressed realm, Zichun could continue to break through. At that time, it would be difficult for Noah to not lose. Early the next morning, Nellerson came again. However, no matter how he shouted, no one paid attention to him. There were no spectators today. Obviously, the people in the neighboring villages had their own lives and went hunting. On this day, Nellerson came back empty-handed, so he was naturally a little depressed. That night, Zichun came to Iz's room again. Isaiah didn't sleep today, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't dare. Zichun had entered without making a sound, causing him to be shocked. After coming in, Zichun saw the life spirit fruits in the room. He smiled and said, "It seems that you made the right choice." As he spoke, Zichun took away the life spirit fruits. At this point, Kata's crisis was resolved. Looking at the silent Iz, Zichun said again, "Relax, everything is temporary. During this time, as long as you promise not to make any mistakes and do everything secretly, there will be no problem at all. Moreover, when necessary, I will secretly help you. I won't let others see the problem." After that, Zichun's figure disappeared. Ija sat alone in the room, his expression constantly changing. He didn't dare to say this to anyone, and no one gave him advice. He could only rely on his own decisions. However, he did not know what the future would be like. He could not see any hope at all. The reason why he decided to help Zichen this time was because he had heard about Zichen from Henry. It was as if he had descended from the sky. On the first day, he was still a cripple, but he had saved Shanya from the soul-devouring beast. On the second day, he had become a soul hunter and defeated him in Geddon. After that, he had single-handedly destroyed the powerful Arte village. The speed at which he rose to power surpassed all the other geniuses. Apart from that, it was also because of Zichen's intelligence. Because yesterday, after Zichen left, he suddenly understood why Zichen didn't rob Nelson of thousands of life soul fruits. He definitely didn't want to have a head-on conflict with Noah, at least not now. He had potential and wisdom, plus it wouldn't do him much harm, so Iza wanted to take a gamble. Of course, there was another reason in his heart that he didn't want to admit. The reason why Zichen came to him was because he had been defeated by Zichen, and he had truly felt Zichen's power. After Zichen left Iza's place, he went to Geddon's place. Everything went smoothly, and Geddon gave him the equivalent of one soul-devouring beast's life soul fruit. There were only a few dozen people in Kata, and there was still a surplus of life soul fruits. He had made preparations in advance, so he believed that Kata would be able to hold on for a long time. After returning, Zichen continued to cultivate. 2 days passed in a flash, and Zichen still hadn't broken through. He guessed that there weren't many life soul fruits left in Shan Er's place, so he ended his cultivation and walked out of the room. Because more than half of the people were gone, the whole Kata was very quiet. Shanya was teaching the bright treasured spirit technique, while Clark and Vern were watching from the side. Outside the village, Nelson was yelling tirelessly, and he seemed to be very unwilling to give up. Zichen sent some life soul fruits to Shan Er, and they could last for a few more days. Time passed, and Shan Er gave out a certain number of life soul fruits every day without stopping. Nelson came every day, but according to the chief, Kata's life soul fruits should have been gone long ago. Why were they still living so well? Half a month had passed Noah's estimate, and Kata was still there. The young man was obviously anxious, and he kept urging Noah to speed up. But Noah was also helpless. There was no place to exchange life soul fruits for Zichen. Kata should have collapsed long ago. He also asked around, and no one in the other villages helped him. Everything was normal. But under the increasing pressure from the young man, Noah finally became ruthless and increased the rewards of the other villages several times. This could only ensure that the other villages could barely survive, and there were almost no life soul fruits. Because of that, the villagers all began to complain and put even more effort into hunting. As a result, they ended up reaping a lot more rewards. Zichen was still refining life soul fruits without stopping. The feeling of suppression was still there, but he never gave up. As the number of life soul fruits he refined increased, Zichen clearly felt that the suppression was weakening. It was only a matter of time before he broke through. Don't hold on anymore. I know you don't have any more life soul fruits. As long as you join the Noah tribe, your rewards will be 5 times higher. Nelson was still yelling outside. This situation had been going on for more than 20 days. No one in Kata village paid attention to him. Zichen stayed in his room, refining one life soul fruit after another. The feeling of breaking through to the next level in his heart grew stronger and stronger. It seemed that breaking through the suppression was now. Therefore, he was no longer stingy with life soul fruits. He refined them crazily. By now, the number of life soul fruits he refined had exceeded the budget he had left for himself. If he continued refining, he would consume the portion he had left for everyone, but he didn't stop. This was because he had a feeling that if he couldn't break through today, his future would be even more difficult. In Kata realm, the number of life soul fruits was decreasing rapidly. Zichen's refining speed was getting faster and faster. In the Noah tribe, the youth glared at Noah and said angrily, "You bastard! You said half a month. It's already been a month. Do you know how great of a price I paid for the sake of suppressing his cultivation?" Noah was helpless. In order to suppress Kata, he had offended many villages. They couldn't even take care of Kata. Who would have thought that Kata still existed and hadn't been destroyed? He also wanted to know the reason. Looking at the furious youth, Noah could only say, "Wait a few more days. They'll be at the end of their rope. They won't be able to hold on." When the youth heard this, he wanted to slap him to death. Noah had been saying this since half a month ago. In order to suppress Zichen's realm, he had paid a great price. "Okay, I'll—" Before the young man could finish his words, his expression changed drastically. He let out an angry roar and disappeared. In Kata village, Zichen broke through the suppression and broke through to level 5. Chapter 3673. After 2 months, Kata village was once again bathed in the rain of light, and everyone's soul power grew under the irrigation of the rain of light. A group of villagers ran out of their houses and cheered loudly. Shan Er looked up at the sky, watching the rain of light fall. He knew that the leader had broken through again. Moreover, every time the rain of light fell, they would be able to obtain great benefits. Take him, for example. He was once an old man whose soul power had withered, but after a few rain of light, not only did he become much younger, even his soul power had returned. Right now, he could clearly feel that his soul power had become stronger, even surpassing his peak. The cheers continued, but the most excited one was Zichen, because he obtained an additional technique. Breaking through the 5th realm, you can obtain a technique. This was a cold voice. There was no emotion in it, but it could instantly distinguish a person's gender. It was a female voice. Just when Zichen was a little confused, the rain of light suddenly changed, and 3 light balls floated in front of him. 1 bright, 2 dark. The 3 light balls floated quietly in front of Zichen, and the cold voice sounded again. "You can only choose one." Zichen immediately divided his soul power and landed on the 3 light balls one after another. One of the dimmer ones was the Heaven and Earth Soul Annihilation technique. This was a powerful soul technique. One could tell from its name. The other one was called Wind Kill. Because he couldn't sense it in detail, Zichen could only know the name of the soul technique. As for the brightest one, it was Underworld Ghost. There were only 2 words, Underworld Ghost. "You don't have much time. Quickly choose." The voice began to urge, almost not giving Zichen time to think. Underworld Ghost. However, Zichen also made his choice without hesitation, not because Underworld Ghost light was brighter, but because the 2 words Underworld Ghost had some connection with him. Just after Zichen made his choice, the 2 dimmed light balls immediately disappeared. The speed of disappearance even gave Zichen some illusion in his mind. If he made another choice, these 2 dimmed light balls would also disappear. That bright ball of light immediately entered Zichen's sea of consciousness. Dark Ghost Technique. Zichen began to comprehend the technique. Outside, the cheers continued. Shanya broke through again and reached the 5th level. Vern and Clark also reached the 4th level. The others had also made considerable progress, and all of them were very excited. In the room, Zichen opened his eyes. He already had a general understanding of the ghost technique. He was in a good mood because the shackles on his body had completely disappeared. In this situation, he would reach Realm 6 soon. When he reached Realm 6, Zichen decided to look for Noah. When Zichen walked out of the room, all the villagers looked at him excitedly. This time, they had gained a lot of benefits. Many of them had broken through from the 1st realm to the 2nd realm, and some of the commoners had sensed the undulations of soul power. Zichen nodded at the crowd and left the village. This caused the others to be incomparably surprised. As far as they knew, Leader Zichen hadn't left the village ever since he attacked Yate. No one knew that Zichen had gone to Iza and Gedon to get the life soul fruit at night. After leaving Kata, Zichen headed into the forest. Today, he wanted to try out the uniqueness of the ghost technique. In his perception, this technique was extremely extraordinary. His future was still not very optimistic because Noah's suppression of the neighboring villages was too great. Even with his secret help, the Iza and Gedon tribes had not had an easy time recently. Therefore, he had to reach the 6th level as soon as possible and then challenge Noah. When he arrived in the forest, Zichen heard the sounds of battle coming from the depths. Clearly, there were people hunting here. This was originally Kata's hunting ground. But recently, no one from Kata came. so this place was occupied by people from other villages. When Zichen walked closer, he saw that it was Iz's people. They were working together to deal with two soul-devouring beasts. They were surrounded by all sides and were having a hard time. The black soul light in Iz's hand turned into a blade that kept flashing, but it could not do anything to the soul-devouring beasts. The rest of the people were also panicking as they kept yelling. Looks like they were forced by the Noah tribe. Otherwise, they would not take such a risk. Zichen shook his head. Since the deal with Iza, the other party had fulfilled the agreement very well. Even if they encountered difficulties now, they did not take the initiative to cancel the agreement. Looking at the people who were having a hard time, Zichen walked forward. If their team lost a few people today, it would definitely affect their profits for the next few days. This was something Zichen did not want to see. The wind whistled, and countless leaves danced wildly, blocking everyone's sight. A dangerous aura suddenly appeared in the field. Sensing this aura, everyone's expression changed and they all retreated. At this time, the wildly dancing leaves blocked everyone's sight, so they did not know what was going on. The wind came and went quickly. When the leaves scattered and everyone's sight returned to normal, they saw that the soul-devouring beasts that made them so embarrassed earlier had fallen to the ground, motionless. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what had happened. Only Iza looked forward, deep in thought. Helping Iza get rid of the soul-devouring beasts was just taking advantage of the situation. Zichen's main purpose was to test the underworld ghost technique. After walking alone, Zichen began to look for the soul-devouring beasts. It was not difficult to find. After only a quarter of an hour, he found one. The moment he saw the other party, Zichen began to form a seal, and at the same time, he retreated. As the seal fell, soul power gathered in front of him and turned into a small beast. The small beast was about the size of a human head and floated in front of Zichen. At first glance, it looked like a ghost, but it was obviously different. Just as Zichen was surprised by the other party's appearance, he saw the underworld ghost immediately fly forward. At this time, the soul-devouring beast had already pounced forward. The moment the two sides touched, the underworld ghost instantly enlarged. It was so big that it swallowed the soul-devouring beast in one bite. The soul-devouring beast disappeared. Looking at the bloated underworld ghost, Zichen was shocked speechless. It swallowed the soul-devouring beast just like that? At this time, the underworld ghost's huge body began to twist. The underworld ghost also began to roll on the ground. The next moment, the underworld ghost's body exploded, and countless soul power surged around. The soul-devouring beast fell to the ground again, and its aura was somewhat weak. It shook its head to wake itself up. Then, it stared at Zichen, its eyes extremely cold. Whoosh! It pounced at Zichen. Chapter 3674. That night, Shanya could not fall asleep for a long time. The fated spirit fruit had always been a big problem for Kata's development. Although the leader had always handled things well, the hearts of Shania and the rest were still filled with worry. This worry had lasted until today, or rather, until just now. The moment she saw the fated spirit fruit, Shanya's emotions were indescribably excited. All the difficulties would become a thing of the past today. That night, the two chiefs, Iza and Gedon, could not fall asleep for a long time, because Zichen had not come. The next morning, Shanya woke up early and called all the people with soul power to go hunting in the mountains. The others were puzzled. They were still at odds with the Noah tribe, so why did they have to go hunting? Also, some people noticed that Nelson had not come for 2 days. Did the two sides reconcile? Some of the villagers thought so in their hearts. Shanya brought a dozen soul hunters into the mountains, including Liang Bao. It was worth mentioning that Liang Bao, who had never participated in a hunt, was already a second realm soul hunter. That day, Shanya also met Iza and the others. It was a coincidence because Iza had taken over their hunting ground. Shanya, why are you here? Iza asked curiously when he saw Shanya. Shanya said calmly, this is our hunting ground. Why can't we come? Shanya was naturally unhappy that their hunting ground had been taken over. Moreover, she did not know about the deal between Zichen and Iza. so her words were not polite. You are not allowed to come here again. Iza was not angry, only puzzled. It was unusual that Zichun did not take the fated spirit fruit last night. Today, he saw Shanya bring people to hunt. Could it be that they had reconciled with the Noah tribe? This was the only possibility that could explain why Zichun no longer needed his fated spirit fruit. Unfortunately, Shanya would not answer this question because the chief had said that it must be kept a secret. Without getting an answer from Shanya and not daring to ask Zichun, Iza could only follow behind Shanya and watch as Shanya and the others began to hunt. Henry followed beside Iza, his expression constantly changing. When he saw that Shanya had hunted the first soul-devouring beast, his expression changed into one of shock. It was actually subdued in an instant. Even Iza was shocked. The hunt was still going on. Vern and Clark had also shown their powerful fighting strength. At the same time, both of them were Realm 4. They could definitely fight a soul-devouring beast and win easily. How could this be? When Hanrue saw this, his face was filled with disbelief. At the same time, he was deeply regretful. In the past, Vern and Clark's combat strength was far inferior to his own. But now, the two of them had become so powerful, which made Hanrue feel very uncomfortable. If he had not chosen to leave Kata, would he have become so powerful? Iza also stopped hunting and followed behind to watch. In a short time, Kata's people had hunted more than a dozen soul-devouring beasts. After that, Shanya asked Vern to bring the soul-devouring beasts back while she continued to hunt. Obviously, Shanya was preparing to make up for all the soul-devouring beasts that she had not hunted during this time. Ija and the others who followed behind were shocked and envious at the same time. They had hunted every day and worked hard, but they could only hunt a few soul-devouring beasts. Kata, on the other hand, had hunted more than a dozen in such a short time. If this continued, it would not be a problem to hunt 100 in a day. If there was a place to exchange, Kata would rise in a very short time. What had happened? Why did Kata hunt so many soul-devouring beasts? Iza had a guess in his heart. Why did Zichun suddenly want so many soul-devouring beasts? Looking at the increasing number of soul-devouring beasts in front of them, Iza had an idea in his heart. He immediately stepped forward and said, Shanya, you have collected a lot of soul-devouring beasts. Do you want us to help you send them back? No need. Shanya decisively refused. To this person who had wanted to kill her, Shanya would not have a good attitude. Shanya, don't worry. We will send them back for free this time. We don't want any reward. Just treat it as the price for hunting here. Isis said again, if you are willing, in the next few days, we can help you transport the soul-devouring beasts for free. Shanya's expression gradually turned cold. Naturally, she did not want to have anything to do with this guy. We used to be friends after fighting. And you know, we have been under a lot of pressure recently. The Noah tribe will take more than half of our harvest every day. This news had spread long ago. Shanya also knew about it. She was a little hesitant now. Iza immediately struck while the iron was hot. Why don't I send the soul-devouring beasts back this time and ask Chief Zichun for his opinion? If he is willing, he will leave this matter to us. This was Iza's real purpose. He wanted to find a way to meet Zichun and ask him what was going on. All right then, Clark, you go back with us. Although Shanya nodded in agreement, she was obviously still not at ease. With the Fourth Realm Clark following them, she believed that Iza and the others would not dare to play any tricks. Seeing that Shanya agreed, Iza's face lit up. He called for everyone to hurry up. They brought the prey and headed towards Kata. Zichun waited for the first batch of prey. There were a total of 13 of them. He signaled Rabin to put the prey in their original place. When Rabin went in, he found that the soul-devouring beasts were gone. He was a little confused but did not ask. After putting down the soul-devouring beasts, he left. Zichun used the underworld ghost to start devouring the soul-devouring beasts. The number of life spirit fruits left by the underworld ghost was increasing. After the last soul-devouring beast was devoured, the underworld ghost left behind more than 80 life spirit fruits. At this moment, a sound came from outside the village. There was a hint of panic. Zichun walked out of the room and went to check it out. At the entrance of the village, he saw Iza and the others. They were returning with the soul-devouring beasts under Clark's signal. Zichen's heart jumped. He guessed the reason. "Chief, they—" Clark came forward and told him what happened. Hearing Clark's words, Zichen nodded and said, "It's rare that they are willing to help. Quickly send the soul-devouring beasts back." Seeing that the chief was not angry, Clark finally heaved a sigh of relief. Zichen looked at Iza and said, "Chief Iza is willing to help Kata. We are naturally happy. You know that we don't have many people. If the chief doesn't mind, we will have to trouble you to transport the soul-devouring beasts in the future. Of course, we can't let the chief work for free. We will pay you." Iza said with a troubled expression, "It's not a problem to transport the soul-devouring beasts, but the exchange." Before Iza could finish, Zichen said, "There is no need. The chief just needs to bring the soul-devouring beasts back to Kata. I will arrange for the exchange." Chapter 3675. Ija looked at Zichen with an excited expression. Zichen nodded his head without batting an eyelid, which could be considered as an answer. He continued, "I'll have to trouble Chief Ija for the following matters." This was still a special period, so Zichen didn't have much interaction with Ija. After putting all the soul-eating beasts in the room, Ija left with his people. Clark still followed Ija, but before leaving, Zichen told Clark to try his best to harvest as much as possible. If Hell Ghost wanted to grow, it needed many soul-eating beasts to supplement it. After returning, Zichen continued to use Hell Ghost. Ija was in a good mood because Zichen's kata had completely survived this disaster, and Noah didn't notice his help. So from now on, Ija's life would become better. On this day, Ija's people helped Shanya transport more than 50 soul-eating beasts back. When the sky was about to turn dark, Zichen gave Ija 4 soul-eating beasts as a reward. At the same time, Zichen told Ija that he didn't need to deliberately arrange for soul hunters to come tomorrow. As long as the soul-eating beasts could be transported back, even ordinary people would be fine. This was clearly the goodwill Zichen could show at the moment, so Ija didn't refuse and agreed. That night, Shanya and the others brought back the last batch of soul-eating beasts, a total of 15. When they were put in the room, Shanya found that the original soul-eating beasts were gone. The others were extremely shocked. Where was their harvest today? Let's go. Rest well tonight. We'll continue tomorrow. Shanya didn't dwell on this matter and immediately arranged for everyone to leave. After everyone left, Zichen came again and continued to use Hell Ghost to devour the soul-eating beasts and obtain more fate spirit fruits. When the place was empty again, Zichen returned to his room to cultivate and refine the fate spirit fruits. Early the next morning, everyone set off again. Before Shanya and the others left, Zichen found Shan Er first and asked him to calculate everyone's harvest every day. When the time came, everyone would be rewarded according to their contributions. On this day, Ija didn't come. 3 soul hunters and dozens of ordinary people were in charge of transporting the soul-devouring beast for Kata. Zichen spent the entire day refining the life spirit fruits. As the number of soul-devouring beasts increased, the life spirit fruits grew stronger as well. After refining one soul-devouring beast, the number of life spirit fruits left behind exceeded 100, and it was still increasing. On this day, Shanya and the others had hunted more than 70 soul-devouring beasts. Zichen had also obtained close to 10,000 life spirit fruits. That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, Zichen left the room without making a sound. He went to find Gerton. Guduin had been having a hard time recently. Now that Zichen had the life soul fruit, he naturally had to help him. In the room, Gatton became very excited when he saw Zichen. He immediately went forward to confirm the information he had gathered today. Zichen waved his hand and stopped him from speaking. "There are some things that I can't tell you for the time being." Gatton was stunned and didn't know what to do. A light flashed in front of Zichen, and a large number of life spirit fruits appeared. There were more than 2,000 of them. Seeing so many life spirit fruits, Gatton was stunned again. He couldn't help but ask, "Where did you get them?" Zichen smiled and didn't answer the question. Instead, he patted Gatton's shoulder and said, "Thank you for your help during this time. So I'll give you some life spirit fruits first. Everyone's life will be better." Gatton's eyes flashed. Ija also helped you this time, didn't he? I heard that his people are working for you, and the pay is quite high. Zichen nodded and said, that's right. Kada was able to survive until now because of the two of you. However, I don't have the strength to deal with Noah yet, so I have to be careful. Your people shouldn't have any contact with Kada for now. As for the life spirit fruits, I'll send them to you often. Gatton looked into Zichen's eyes and asked, you really want to fight Noah? For the soul heaven grind, of course we have to fight. Zichen said, it's a tradition and a rule. After Zichen left, Gatton became excited. Obviously, his suffering was not in vain. Even if Noah continued to suppress his forces, with the additional life spirit fruits provided by Zichen, Gatton would never decline. In Noah's tribe, Noah was dumbfounded. He didn't know what happened. Why did the young man leave without saying goodbye? Didn't he say that he would suppress Zichen's level for a few more days? Plus, according to his prediction, Kata, where Zichen was, would be destroyed in a few days. At first, he thought that this young man who never introduced himself had something urgent, so he decided to wait for 2 days. At the same time, he also told Nelson not to go there for a few days, and let Kata's people wait for a few days. Otherwise, they would really think that he was trying to curry favor with them. However, after waiting for 3 days, the young man still didn't come back. Noah couldn't sit still anymore. This was related to whether he could advance or not, so he naturally had to be more careful. He decided to send people to Kata to have a look. What he saw gave him a fright. Kata was hiring people to transport the soul-eating beasts, and there were dozens of them every day. He even paid the people who transported the beasts very well. When Noah heard the news, he was stunned for a long time. Was Kata crazy? Without the soul heaven grind, what was the point of having so many soul-eating beasts? Go and check again. See what Zichen is trying to do. Then, Noah's people tried their best to find out. Finally, they found out that the soul-eating beasts that Kata brought had all disappeared for some reason. The place that used to be full was empty when they went in again. However, no one knew how those soul-eating beasts disappeared. Chief, could it be that Kata's people are deliberately mystifying things? In fact, their real purpose is to use Ija to exchange for life soul fruits, so that they can survive. Looking at the frowning chief, Nellerson said, after all, there are several soul-eating beasts. The life soul fruits they obtained are enough for Kata's people to survive. Noah tapped the table with his finger and remained silent. Nellerson said again, moreover, this Ija is quite bold. He actually disobeyed the chief's order and contacted Kata. He must be punished. Otherwise, where will our Noah's prestige go? After a moment of silence, Noah said coldly, pass down the order. Say that there are some problems with the soul heaven grind recently. It is not open to Ija. Nellerson nodded and turned to leave. Chapter 3676. The people Iza sent out to exchange for the life spirit fruits came back with the soul-eating beasts again. Their faces were filled with frustration and even despair. The god's soul heaven grindstone was not open to the outside world. It was obviously an excuse. Iza and Kata were completely targeted by the Noah tribe. When Iza heard the news, he was obviously shocked. He immediately left everything behind and rushed to the Noah tribe to ask to see their leader. Of course, Noah would not see him. Iza only saw Nelson. Nelson sat on a high seat and glanced at Iza with disdain and mockery. Iza put down all his pride and repeatedly promised that he had nothing to do with Zichen. It was just that recently, Iza's life was too tight. He had no choice but to help Kata do things that were not dangerous and get some rewards. But no matter what Iza said, no matter how much he begged and promised, Nelson sneered and did not relent. In the end, Nelson was really impatient and rewarded Iza with the word, get lost. Iza left with humiliation and unwillingness. His heart was also filled with despair. This time, the Noah tribe was obviously determined to target his village and kill one to warn the others. He was not Zichen. There was no way he could lead the villagers out of this predicament. That night, he did not go back. Instead, he went directly to Kata village to ask for Zichen's help. After hearing Iza's story, Zichen glanced at him, who was on the verge of despair, and said, "Speaking of which, Noah is targeting you because of me. If it was in the past, I wouldn't have been able to do anything, but now, it's not a problem." "Really?" Iza looked at Zichun, and his eyes lit up again. Zichun patted his shoulder and said, "How can it be fake? Tomorrow morning, you bring all the soul-eating beasts here. I will temporarily exchange them at 150 life spirit fruits. You will be responsible for transporting the beasts every day, and will be given the same amount for the time being. When I have more freedom in the future, I will raise the price." Of course, Iza did not have any objections. He was even very happy because Zichen's price was even higher than Noah's. Ija and the others couldn't even get back half of the soul-devouring beast they brought back. The next day, the despairing Iza village welcomed the dawn. They moved their soul-eating beasts to Kata village. Then, Shan Er gave them the life spirit fruit according to the price set by Zichen. The reward for Ija that day was also settled with the life soul fruit. The news quickly spread to the Noah tribe. The Noah tribe was shocked when they heard the news. Where did Zichen get the life soul fruit? Send more people to investigate. We must get to the bottom of this. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Shanya continued to lead the team to hunt. Zichun refined the life spirit fruit during the day and refined it at night to cultivate. After the shackles disappeared, he clearly felt that the rate of increase in his soul force had increased significantly. If he continued to develop like this, he believed that he wouldn't be far from breaking through to the 6th stage. The number of life soul fruits was also increasing slowly. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Shanya's harvest was increasing. The number of soul-devouring beasts they hunted every day had already exceeded 100. On this day, after Shanya returned, she didn't return to her room. Instead, she went to find Zichen. Zichen was refining the last batch of soul-devouring beasts. Moreover, this place was forbidden to others. In the entire Kata village, only Shanya could come here. Seeing the underworld ghost devouring beasts, Shanya was still shocked even though she had seen it more than once. "What's the matter?" Zichen put away the life soul fruit in front of him and glanced at Shanya. "In the past few days, we haven't gone too deep," Shanya said. Zichen stopped his hand seals and turned to look at Shanya. "So, you've been hunting in the outer regions and have such a big harvest every day?" Shanya nodded. "Recently, the number of soul-devouring beasts has increased significantly. Most of them are in groups of 3 to 5. They seem to be coming from the inner regions." Shanya had lived here for a long time. Since she noticed the abnormality, there was clearly a problem. "Has this happened before?" Zichen asked. "Never." Shanya shook her head. "Then you must be careful when you hunt. If you need my help, send a message in advance." As Zichen spoke, he formed another hand seal and another underworld ghost appeared. The underworld ghost that appeared swallowed a soul-devouring beast next to it. This was almost an instinct of the underworld ghost. Zichen watched from the side. Shanya didn't leave immediately. The underworld ghost's body continued to roll, as if it was suffering some kind of pain. Zichen watched quietly, estimating how long it would take for the underworld ghost to disappear. Unexpectedly, at this time, a powerful black light suddenly erupted from the underworld ghost's body. A vast amount of soul power surged. Its huge body instantly returned to normal and came to Zichen's side. Zichen looked at it. The underworld ghost was also looking at Zichen. Zichen saw intelligence in the underworld ghost's eyes, as if it had just been born and gained wisdom. "What's going on?" Shanya asked in surprise. Zichen withdrew his gaze from the underworld ghost and sighed. This is a real underworld ghost. Previously, when he and the underworld ghost looked at each other, a young soul fluctuation was transmitted into Zichen's sea of consciousness. At the same time, a familiar feeling appeared in his heart. Shanya looked at the underworld ghost in surprise. A light suddenly flew out from between the underworld ghost's eyebrows and disappeared into Zichen's body. Shanya's expression changed, full of vigilance. Soul power surrounded her body. Zichen immediately waved his hand and said, "Don't do anything, I'm fine." The underworld ghost tilted its head and looked at Zichen, Its bright black eyes were very intelligent. Zichun nodded to the underworld ghost and said, "From now on, we will fight together." The soul light caused the two souls to be closely connected. The underworld ghost nodded its little head in confusion, then jumped onto Zichun's shoulder, looking very happy. Shanya stood to the side, looking at this scene in surprise. Zichun said, "Let's get rid of these soul-devouring beasts first. I need the life-soul fruits." The intelligent underworld ghost immediately stepped forward and swallowed a soul-devouring beast. Its body no longer expanded, returning to its previous size. However, the soul power surging around its body became unstable, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. A moment later, soul light flew out from the underworld ghost's body, turning into life-soul fruits. This time, there were more than 200 life-soul fruits. After Zichun put away the life-soul fruits, the underworld ghost continued to refine them. After the two souls were connected, Zichun had a certain understanding of the underworld ghost. It was equivalent to the divine soul heaven's grindstone. While refining the soul-devouring beasts to obtain the life-soul fruits, it could also use the opportunity to increase his soul power. This was equivalent to Zichun having a mobile divine soul heaven's grindstone. No matter where he went in the future, he would not have to worry about not having enough life-soul fruits. In the Noah tribe, Noah, who had been waiting for accurate news for a long time, decided not to wait any longer and chose to take the initiative to attack. "Everyone, follow me. Today, I will destroy Kada in one fell swoop." As the order was given, one soul hunter after another appeared on the scene, then followed Noah and headed towards Kata. Chapter 3677. More than 200 faded soul fruits floated in the air. They shone brightly, and soul power surged, forming ripples that spread out. Yugue jumped onto Zichun's shoulder. It seemed to be uncomfortable with everyone's gazes and shrunk back. The surroundings were silent, or rather, dead silent. This scene was too shocking, and even beyond common sense. How could there be anything in this world other than the divine soul heaven grind that could condense faded soul fruits? The crowd couldn't see the little beast that could condense the life spirit fruit. Their gazes landed on Noah once again. They had heard the other party's righteous words clearly. The strange little beast beside Zichun could condense faded soul fruits on its own, so the so-called theft naturally did not exist. It was obvious that Noah had lied, and he had lied with all sincerity. They had also heard about the conflict between Zichun and Noah. It was said that Zichun had disregarded the rules and snatched Yate first. Judging from Noah's actions, it was obvious that it was not that simple. In the crowd, Guduin and Ija finally understood where Zichun had obtained the faded soul fruits. Ija, in particular, had been very puzzled as to why the number of faded soul fruits Zichun had exchanged for was increasing day by day. So this was the reason. The surroundings were silent as everyone looked at Noah. Noah's expression was a little ugly. He had not expected Zichun to embarrass him in such a short time. Moreover, that little beast was equivalent to the divine soul heaven grind. It really shocked him. The excuse of theft was no longer valid. This made the killing intent behind him feel awkward. Zichun patted his cheeks gently and looked at Noah, whose expression was changing. "I told you before that this was a very lousy excuse, but you didn't believe me. You had to put your face on the line to make a solemn promise. What about now? Do you feel a burning sensation on your face?" Looking at the infuriated Noah, Zichun smiled disdainfully. "Or are you looking for another excuse, and then use this to make things difficult for me?" Noah's changing expression suddenly became decisive. He snorted coldly again. "I don't know what nonsense you were talking about. Previously, when I said that you stole the life soul fruit, I was referring to this spirit pet. Do you know how long it took our Noah tribe to cultivate them? How could it be stolen by you just like that?" The surrounding people were all silent, but their strange expressions showed what they were thinking at this moment. It seemed that everyone was saying that this was too shameless. Zichun looked at him and said, "Are you sure? Is my ghost a spirit pet of the Noah tribe?" "Of course," Noah said arrogantly and conceitedly. "Who else in this area can cultivate such a spirit pet other than us, Noah?" Zichun gave Noah a thumbs up and said, this is the first time I've seen such a shameless person. Are you sure that this is a spirit pet? Furthermore, it's Noah's spirit pet? Of course I'm sure. If not, why would we be here? Noah's eyes gradually turned cold. You actually dared to steal our Noah's things, so you must die today. Zichun sneered and said, in that case, take a look at what this is. Zichun immediately snapped his fingers and the ghost standing on his shoulder dissipated into thin air, turning into pure soul power and disappearing. How dare you kill my spirit pet? You are courting death. Noah's body suddenly surged with a crazy killing intent as he prepared to attack. Don't be anxious. The show hasn't started yet. There are some things that an idiot like you can't even imagine. As he spoke, Zichun began to form seals. The next moment, the ghost reappeared, as agile as before. Everyone widened their eyes as they watched this scene. Zichun said, this is not a spirit pet, but a special kind of soul technique. You should know about soul techniques, right? Without waiting for Noah to answer, Zichun continued, an idiot like you definitely wouldn't know. Who knows, you might find other reasons to target me. Instead of being chased and bitten by a dog like you, why don't I take the initiative and get rid of you once and for all? Zichun suddenly pointed a finger to the sky. His expression became incomparably solemn as he said loudly, as the witness of the rules, I, Zichun, in the name of Kata's leader, officially challenge Noah to determine the ownership of God's grindstone. Originally, the crowd had not recovered from the fact that the ghost was a soul technique. They did not expect to hear such a shocking challenge. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Zichun again. A small kata dared to challenge the strongest person in this area? Gelton's expression changed. His face was full of shock. He never thought that Zichun would actually issue a challenge today. However, looking at the current situation, he was relieved. If the people of the Noah tribe swarmed up, Zichun and his kata would definitely be destroyed. However, issuing a challenge was different. It could only be a battle between two leaders. When the victor was determined, the ownership of God's grindstone would also be determined. At this moment, many people's eyes began to move, finally landing on an old man on the other side of the crowd. The old man's name was Dalt. Very few people knew this name now, but 20 years ago, this was an existence comparable to Noah. At that time, Dalt was still a tribe in charge of God's grindstone. However, Noah used a challenge like today to turn the former Noah village into the Noah tribe. After obtaining God's grindstone, this tribe grew stronger for more than 20 years. The defeated Dalt tribe also became history after that battle. Right now, the same scene was happening again. Would Noah, who was in his prime, also become history? Dalt's expression was very calm as he faced the gazes of the people around him. He only looked up at the sky and muttered, "It's about time." Buzz. The sky suddenly shook, and a strong surge of soul power began to surge. In the vibrating ripples, a god's grindstone appeared in the sky. It was the one from the Noah tribe that was completely sealed because of the challenge. Next, only the winner could take it away. Looks like another cycle has arrived. Dalt let out a sigh. It was always like this. No matter how strong an existence was, there would be a day when they would grow old. Between tribes, there would always be ups and downs. Seeing that the god's grindstone that had accompanied him for more than 20 years was sealed and temporarily no longer belonged to him, an unimaginable killing intent appeared in Noah's eyes. He stared at Zichun and said word by word, "Today, you will definitely die." Chapter 3678. The eruption of a Realm 7 aura was extremely terrifying to everyone here. For a moment, everyone began to retreat. Because of Zichun's challenge, this battle changed from a tribal battle to a personal battle. This was a rule that had been passed down for a long time, and no one could interfere. "You're courting death." Noah's voice was cold, and his black hair swayed without wind. Feeling the deep aura of the other party, Zichun's expression became solemn. According to his original plan, he would only look for Noah to completely resolve this matter when he broke through to Realm 6. He didn't expect the other party to be so impatient, leaving Zichun with no choice but to do this. His Realm 5 soul power surrounded him, but it was obviously weaker than Noah's. Shanya and the others, who had already retreated far away, felt the obvious difference in strength between the two parties at this moment, and they were worried. A mere realm 5 dares to challenge me. You're courting death. Noah's soul light flashed, and he rushed towards Zichun. His speed was very fast, like a streak of black light shooting out. Exclamations came from all around again. No matter how Noah made everyone feel this time, his strength was there for all to see. He was the strongest person in this area. The strongest person. Looking at the charging Noah, Zichun took a deep breath, and his soul power began to gather in his clenched fists. Under the nervous gazes of everyone, the two of them made contact for the first time. A loud boom was heard. A powerful soul fluctuation swept out in all directions, bringing with it a lot of smoke and dust. Zichun's body slid backwards, retreating a few feet. In their first confrontation, Zichun could clearly feel Noah's powerful strength. He was indeed worthy of being the strongest person here. But Zichun was not invincible. With a tap of his foot, soul power surged out from under his feet, and several cracks appeared on the ground beneath his feet. Zichun was like an arrow that had been released from a bow as he shot straight towards Noah. When he was close, he clenched his fists, and soul power surrounded his fists again. A punch came down. Soul shock. This was a soul technique recorded in the spirit control art. It was extremely powerful. Zichun had been teaching Shanya and the others during this time. There was a sharp whistling sound in the air, which was unusually ear-piercing. As Zichun's fist landed, it was as if a gust of wind was blowing in all directions. Shanya and Clark had both learned Soul Strike before. Shanya could already use it normally, while Clark had only just learned the basics. When they saw the power of Zichun's attack, the two were shocked. At the same time, they also felt the gap between themselves and Zichun. Looking at Zichun's attack, Noah smiled disdainfully and said, "I heard that you once countered this move of mine. Today, let me see if you are as strong as the rumors say." A beam of soul light appeared in front of them and turned into a defensive light barrier. This was the defensive technique that Brad had used before. Zichun's fist landed on the light shield. A huge tremor resounded. The soul power light shield was hit by a huge force and started to cave in. In the light shield, Noah sneered and said, "Your strength is not bad, but it's a pity that it's still too weak. You're dreaming if you want to break my defense." A beam of soul light flew out from his body. The sunken light shield was slowly recovering. The powerful force contained in Zichun's punch was also being dispelled. Whoosh! When the force on the fist was dispelled, Zichun immediately retreated. Then, he moved forward again. This time, his attack was soul shock. As for the soul techniques that Zichun had learned when he first came here, he had not used them yet. This was because there was a gap of 2 realms between them. Under such circumstances, Zichun did not dare to be careless at all. Moreover, he had to use his full strength in every attack. Boom! The palm print landed on the light shield, forming a strange vibration force. It seemed to penetrate the light shield and break the connection between Noah and the defensive light shield. The light shield started to tremble violently, as if it could break at any time. In the light shield, the disdain on Noah's face was receding. He realized that his opponent's strength was indeed very strong. His powerful defense was actually showing signs of collapsing. Therefore, he did not wait any longer. Instead, he shouted and directly used the second method of the defensive light shield. Just as the power of Zichun's palm print was about to dissipate, the light shield in front of him suddenly dispersed like a water screen. Many people thought that Zichun had broken through Noah's defense and were very surprised. The power of the water screen gathered in Noah's palm. A tyrannical wave spread out. He pressed his palm towards Zichun's chest. Zichun quickly blocked with his hands. His soul power turned into a defense in front of him. An equally extraordinary light shield appeared in front of Zichun. However, this light shield only lasted for a moment before it exploded. A powerful force shook. Zichun's body flew backward rapidly and landed in the distance. Cries of surprise rang out from all around. This turn of events was too quick. They had all thought that Zichun had the upper hand. Shanya and the others were nervous. They looked at Zichun worriedly. Zichun stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were fixed on Noah. Noah was a little regretful. If the light shield had gathered more power, Zichen would not have just coughed up blood. He would have been seriously injured. It was a pity that Zichen's attack was too strange. If he had held on for a while longer, his defense might not have been able to hold on and it would have exploded in advance. Noah, who was shocked by Zichen's strength, did not show it on his face. He said disdainfully, "It seems that you can't even break my defense. What do you have to challenge me?" The light shield appeared once again, protecting Noah. The other party in the light shield said coldly, "I can kill you with just this one move." Zichen took a deep breath and rushed forward again. Noah's face was full of sarcasm. "Come on, use the move you used before again." Zichen approached and threw a punch through the light shield. The light shield only caved in slightly before it returned to normal. Noah laughed loudly. "Again. Let's see when you'll die of exhaustion." Zichen, who had retreated, rushed forward again. There was a wave of soul light in his palm. It was the soul shaker. He had used the same move before, but he had injured himself. Why would he use it now? Noah's expression was full of disdain. "It seems that you only know these two moves." Just as Zichen's palm was about to hit him, Zichen shouted, "Underworld Ghost." The underworld ghost that had not dissipated appeared in front of Noah like a ghost. It bit at the light shield. Zichen could not break through the light shield with all his strength. However, a gap appeared at this moment. Powerful soul power surged. The underworld ghost let out a scream and its body exploded. At the same time, Noah's light shield shattered. Zichen's palm landed on Noah's chest.